I don't know where I left my water bottle. All right. Shalom, everyone. All right. Welcome to Torah Tuesday. And I'm Rabbi Steve, stepping in for the other teachers that have been here. No. So I'm just standing in for them until they come back. All right. So Torah Tuesday. So if you're new and just found us, what we're going to do tonight is we're going to read this week's Torah portion, okay, which is Vayira. And we're going to cover that today. We're going to read it, and then we're going to discuss it. And between the two, we're going to have some quick announcements. And of course, we'll begin, as always, with prayer. So if we have any prayer requests or praise reports that need to be shared, you can go ahead and line up over here. If you're on the live stream, we've got Grayson back there on the live stream desk. All right. Overwhelming. Just the lack of applause was deafening. Okay, and you got the Shamish team on there as well, yes? Okay. All right, so we got Kurt, Rob, etc., helping make sure everybody behaves in the chat room. All right, so anybody have a praise or prayer? You can come on up to the stand there. Nope, it looks like we're all good. All right, so back to you. Too quick for you guys.
Yeah, there's just zero chance that anybody's going to be able to have typed anything in. I don't even think the delay has matched them yet.
All right. Are you reading today? You may. We'll just take one of the chairs away. All right. See, I made you put 9, now it's back to 8. All right. We'll just give it a few more seconds in case, Grayson, in case you get any, we'll give it a second or two here. Did anybody else have a praise or prayer that they needed that's here? Okay, Rabbi Tom does. Okay, let's bring him the mic. Can we get a camera on him, or do you want to have him come up closer?
I would like to ask prayer, first of all, for my granddaughter, Hannah. She's going through a rough time, and that's all I'm going to say about that. I'd also like to ask prayer for my daughter, Judy. She's going through an even rougher time, facing some tough decisions, so we pray that Yahweh will guide her and she'll make the right decisions. And I'd like to ask prayer, finally, for my dear wife with her knee problem, and she just keeps going and agitating it, and she won't listen.
It's very hard to stop a Rebbitzin in motion. It's like one of those laws of physics. A Rebbitzin in motion stays in motion. That's Moshe's third postulate. It's not Newton's thing, but anyway. Anybody else? All right, Grayson, did you get any by now?
We've got praises that you will be leading Torah study tonight.
Oh, well, good.
And then other than that, there's just unspoken.
Okay. I'm so nervous now that everybody's expecting such. That's okay. Billy's sitting there ready to back me up in case because I haven't done this for a couple of weeks. No, I'm teasing. All right. So tonight's Torah portion. Sorry, I had my notes on the piano instead of here. All right, so tonight's portion is Vayira, and I appeared. It's Exodus 6:2 through 9:35. Okay, so that's 9 readings. So I've got 8 chairs here plus Rabbi Tom. So we go ahead and start filling those up, which means every one of you that are here has to read. All 8 of you. Yes, we're going to do that here in a second. Okay, so we need one of the men to open us in prayer. All right, Steve, why don't you go ahead and do that? Where'd the mic end up? There it is. Okay.
All right, Abba, thank you for the opportunity to gather together and hear your word and take from it and apply it to our lives. In Yeshua's name, amen.
Amen. Amen. Okay. So, Vayira, we've got 9 readings, so we're going to go through the Torah portion. So, here's the preset, okay? First of all, if you're at home or here, I'd like you to be able to take notes in some way. Certainly, you should be able to read along with us. And in taking notes, what are you looking to take notes on? Anything that you either want to make note of for yourself, or a comment you might want to make at the end here when we have the discussion, or a question you may want to ask. Primarily, we are looking for you in the Torah portion. In other words, do you see anything in this portion that either you can recognize is a good trait that you have, and you can see that it's a good trait here, or maybe a bad trait, which is something you can work on in yourself, or maybe something you can just realize that's something you can do differently so that you can continue in your growth as you transform into the image of Yeshua. Okay? So this is all about us. Remember, Paul said these things are written as examples for us so that we can read them and glean from them and use that in our growth, in our transformation. All right, so what I'm going to do is call up each reader one at a time, read a traditional blessing over you, and I'll tell you what verses you're going to read till we finish all 9 readings. Rabbi Tom, you can come up and do the first one. Okay. All right. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Rabbi Tom, who's come up to honor Yahweh and the Torah. May the set-apart one bless him and his family and send blessing and prosperity in all the works of his hands. Amen. Okay, you're going to read chapter 6, verse 2 through 13.
And Elohim spoke to Moshe and said to him, I am Yahweh. And I appeared to Abraham, to Yitzhak, and to Yaakov as El Shaddai. And by my name Yahweh was I not known to them. And I also established my covenant with them to give them the land of Canaan, the land of their sojournings in which they have sojourned. And I have also heard the groaning of the children of Israel, whom the Mitzrites are enslaving, and I have remembered my covenant. Say, therefore, to the children of Israel, I am Yahweh, and I shall bring you out from under the burdens of the Mitzrites, and shall deliver you from their enslaving, and shall redeem you with an outstretched arm and with great judgments, and shall take you as my people, and I shall be your Elohim, and you shall know that I am Yahweh your Elohim, who is bringing you out from under the burdens of the Mitzrites. And I shall bring you into the land which I swore to give to Abraham, to Yitzhak, and to Yaakov, to give it to you as an inheritance. I am Yahweh. And Moshe spoke thus to the children of Israel, but they did not listen to Moshe because of shortness of spirit and from hard slavery. And Yahweh spoke to Moshe, saying, Go in, speak to Pharaoh, sovereign of Mitzrayim, to let the children of Israel go out of his hand. And Moshe spoke before Yahweh, saying, The children of Israel have not listened to me. Why would Pharaoh listen to me? For I am of uncircumcised lips. And Yahweh spoke to Moshe and to Aaron, and gave them a command for the children of Israel and for Pharaoh, sovereign of Mitzrayim, to bring the children of Israel out of the land of Mitzrayim.
All right, amen, amen. Thank you, Rabbi Tom. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may bless Michael, who's come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set-apart one bless him and his family and send blessing and prosperity in all the works of his hands. Amen. All right, Michael, take us from verse 14 to the end of the chapter.
These are the heads of their fathers' houses. The sons of Reuben, the firstborn of Yisrael, Hanoch and Palu, Chetron and Carmi. These are the clans of Reuben. And the sons of Shimon, Yemuel and Yamin, Ohad and Yachin, and Sochar, and Shaul, the son of a Canaanite woman. These are the clans of Shimon. These are the names of the sons of Levi, according to their generations, Gershon and Kehath and Merari. And the years of the life of Levi were 137. And the sons of Gershon, Livni and Shimi, according to their clans. And the sons of Kehath, Amram and Yashar and Hebron and Uziel. And the years of the life of Kehath were 133. And the sons of Merari, Machli and Mushi, These are the clans of Levi according to their generations. And Amram took for himself Jochebed, his father's sister, as wife, and she bore him Aharon and Moshe. And the years of the life of Amram were 137. And the sons of Yashar, Korach, and Nepheg, and Zichri. And the sons of Uziel, Mishael, and Elzaphan, and C3. Aharon took to himself Elisheva, daughter of Aminadab, sister of Nachshon, as wife, and she bore him Nadav, and Abihu, Eleazar, and Ithamar. And the sons of Korach, Asir, Elkanah, and Abiasaph. These are the clans of the Korahites. And Eleazar, Aharon's son, took for himself one of the daughters of Putiel as wife, and she bore him Pinchas. These are the heads of the fathers of the Levites according to their clans. This is Aharon and Moshe. Did I? End of the chapter, yes. This is Aharon and Moshe, to whom Yahweh said, "Bring out the children of Yisrael from the land of Mitzrayim according to their divisions." They were the ones who spoke to Pharaoh, sovereign of Mitzrayim, to bring out the children of Yisrael from Mitzrayim. This is Moshe and Aharon. And it came to be, on the day when Yahweh spoke to Moshe in the land of Mitzrayim, that Yahweh spoke to Moshe, saying, "I am Yahweh. Speak to Pharaoh, sovereign of Mitzrayim, all that I say to you." And Moshe said before Yahweh, "See, I am of uncircumcised lips, and why would Pharaoh listen to me?"
Amen. Amen. Okay, Shannon. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Shannon, who's come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set apart one bless her and her family and send blessing and prosperity on all the works of her hands. Amen. Chapter 7, verses 1 through 12.
So Yahweh said to Moshe, "See, I have made you an Elohim to Pharaoh, and Aharon your brother is your prophet. You shall speak all that I command you, and Aharon your brother shall speak to Pharaoh, to let the children of Israel go out of his land. But I'm going to harden the heart of Pharaoh, and shall increase my signs and my wonders in the land of Mitzrayim. And Pharaoh is not going to listen to you, and I shall lay my hand on Mitzrayim, and bring my divisions and my people, the children of Israel, out of the land of Mitzrayim by great judgments. And the Mitzrayim shall know that I am Yahweh when I stretch out my hand on Mitzrayim, and I shall bring the children of Israel out from among them." And Moshe and Aharon did as Yahweh commanded them, so they did. Now Moshe was 80 years old, and Aharon 83 years old, when they spoke to Pharaoh. And Yahweh spoke to Moshe and Aharon, saying, "When Pharaoh speaks to you, saying, 'Show a miracle for yourselves,' then you shall say to Aharon, 'Take your rod and throw it before Pharaoh, and let it become a serpent.'" So Moshe and Aharon went in to Pharaoh, and they did so, as Yahweh commanded. And Aharon threw his rod before Pharaoh and before his servants, and it became a serpent. But Pharaoh also called the wise men and the practicers of witchcraft, and they, the magicians of Mitzrayim, also did so with their magic. And they, each one, threw down his rod, and they became serpents. But the rod of Aharon swallowed up their rods.
Amen. Amen. Okay, thank you, Shannon. Okay, next up. Okay, Justin. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Justin, who's come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set apart one bless him and his family and send blessing and prosperity in all the works of his hands. Amen. Chapter 7, verse 13 to the end of the chapter.
And Pharaoh's heart was strengthened, and he did not listen to them, as Yahweh had said. And Yahweh said to Moshe, "The heart of Pharaoh is hard. He refuses to let the people go. Go to Pharaoh in the morning, as he goes out to the water, and you shall stand by the river's bank to meet him, and take in your hand the rod, which was turned into a serpent. And you shall say to him, 'Yahweh, the Elohim of the Hebrews, has sent me to you, saying, Let my people go, so that they serve me in the wilderness. But see, until now you have not listened. Thus said Yahweh, by this you know that I am Yahweh. See, I am striking the waters which are in the river with the rod that is in my hand, and they shall be turned to blood. And the fish in the river shall die, and the river shall stink, and the Mitzrayites shall find it impossible to drink the water of the river. And Yahweh spoke to Moshe, say to Aharon, take your rod and stretch out your hand over the waters of Mitzrayim, over their streams, over their rivers, over their ponds, and over all their pools of water, that they become blood. And there shall be blood in all the land of Mitzrayim, both in wooden and in stone containers. And Moshe and Aharon did so, as Yahweh commanded. And he lifted up the rod and struck the waters that were in the river in the eyes of Pharaoh and in the eyes of his servants. And all the waters that were in the river were turned to blood. And the fish that were in the river died, and the river stank. And the Mitzrayites were unable to drink the water of the river. And the blood was in all the land of Mitzrayim. And the magicians of Mitzrayim did the same with their magic. And the heart of Pharaoh was strengthened, and he did not listen to them, as Yahweh had said. And Pharaoh turned and went into his house, and his heart was not moved by this either. And all the Mitzrayites dug all around the river for water to drink, for they were unable to drink the water of the river. And 7 days were completed after Yahweh had struck the river.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Justin. Okay. Paul. Listen, it's been a long day. All right. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Paul, who's come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set apart one bless him and his family and send blessing and prosperity in all the works of his hands. Amen. I'm realizing it's a problem when you call someone always by their last name that sometimes you'll forget their first name. All right. You're going to take us into chapter 8 and we'll read verses 1 through 15.
And Yahweh spoke to Moshe, go to Pharaoh and say to him, thus said Yahweh, let my people go so that they serve me. But if you refuse to let them go, see, I am smiting all your border with frogs, and the river shall swarm with frogs, which shall go up and shall come into your house, and into your bedroom, and on your bed, and into the houses of your servants, and on your people, and into the ovens, and into the kneading bowls. And the frogs shall come up on you, and on your people, and all your servants. And Yahweh said to Moshe, say to Aaron, stretch out your hand with your rod over the streams, over the rivers, over the ponds, and cause frogs to come up on the land of Mitzrayim. And Aaron stretched out his hand over the waters of Mitzrayim, and the frogs came up and covered the land of Mitzrayim. And the magicians did so with their magic, and brought up frogs on the land of Mitzrayim. Pharaoh then called for Moshe and Aharon and said, pray to Yahweh to take away the frogs from me and from my people, and I shall let the people go to slaughter to Yahweh. And Moshe said to Pharaoh, explain yourself to me. When am I to pray for you and for your servants and for your people, to destroy the frogs from you and your houses and remain only in the river? So he said, tomorrow. And he said, let it be according to your words, so that you know that there is no one like Yahweh, our Elohim. And the frogs shall turn aside from you and from your houses and from your servants and from your people. They shall remain in the river only. And Moshe and Aharon went out from Pharaoh. And Moshe cried to Yahweh concerning the frogs which he had brought up against Pharaoh. And Yahweh did according to the word of Moshe. And the frogs died out of the houses, out of the courtyards, and out of the fields. And they gathered them together in heaps, and the land stank. One more? Oh, okay. And when Pharaoh saw that there was relief, he hardened his heart and did not listen to them, as Yahweh had said.
Amen. Okay, thank you, Paul. Oscar. Okay, he who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Oscar, who's come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set apart one bless him and his family and send blessings and prosperity in all the works of his hands. Amen. Okay, you can take us now from verse 16 to the end of chapter 8.
And Yahweh said to Moshe, say to Aharon, stretch out your rod and strike the dust of the land, so that it becomes gnats in all the land of Mitzrayim. And they did so, and Aharon stretched out his hand with his rod and struck the dust of the earth, and it became gnats on man and beast. All the dust of the land became gnats in all the land of Mizraim. And the magicians did similarly with their magic to bring forth gnats, but they were unable. And there were gnats on man and beast. The magicians then said to Pharaoh, "This is the finger of Elohim." But the heart of Pharaoh was strengthened, and he did not listen to them, as Yahweh had said. And Yahweh said to Moshe, "Rise early in the morning and stand before Pharaoh as he comes out to the water, and say to him, 'Thus says Yahweh, let my people go, so that they serve me. Or else, if you do not let my people go, see, I am sending swarms of flies on you and your servants, and on your people, and into your houses. And the houses of the Mitzrites shall be filled with swarms of flies, and also the ground on which they stand. And in that day I shall separate the land of Goshen, in which my people dwell, that no swarms of flies shall be there, so that you know that I am Yahweh in the midst of the land. And I shall put a ransom between my people and your people. Tomorrow this sign shall be.' And Yahweh did so, and thick swarms of flies came into the houses of Pharaoh, and into his servants' houses, and into all the land of Mizraim. And the land was ruined because of the swarms of flies. Pharaoh then called for Moshe and Aharon and said, 'Go, slaughter to your Elohim in the land.' And Moshe said, 'It is not right to do so, for we would be slaughtering the abomination of the Mitzrites to Yahweh our Elohim. See, if we slaughter the abomination of the Mitzrites before their eyes, would they not stone us? Let us go 3 days' journey into the wilderness. Then we shall slaughter to Yahweh our Elohim, as he commands us.' And Pharaoh said, 'I am letting you go. Then you shall slaughter to Yahweh your Elohim in the wilderness. Only do not go very far away. Pray for me.' And Moshe said, 'See, when I leave you, I shall pray to Yahweh, and tomorrow the swarms of flies shall depart from Pharaoh, from his servants, and from his people. But do not let Pharaoh again deceive, not to let the people go to slaughter to Yahweh.' And Moshe went out from Pharaoh and prayed to Yahweh. And Yahweh did according to the word of Moshe, and removed the swarms of flies from Pharaoh, from his servants, and from his people. Not one remained. But Pharaoh hardened his heart at this time too, and did not let the people go."
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Oscar. All right, Krista. You blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. May he bless Krista, who's come up down to Yahweh in the Torah. May the set apart one bless her and her family and send blessing and prosperity in all the works of her hands. Amen. Okay, you're going to go into chapter 9 and read verses 1 through 12.
And Yahweh said to Moshe, "Go into Pharaoh and speak to him. Thus said Yahweh, Elohim of the Hebrews, let my people go so that they serve me. For if you refuse to let them go and are still holding them, see, the hand of Yahweh is on your livestock in the field, on the horses, on the donkeys, on the camels, on the cattle, and on the sheep, a very grievous pestilence. And Yahweh shall separate between the livestock of Israel and the livestock of Mitzrayim, and let no matter die of all that belongs to the children of Israel. And Yahweh set an appointed time, saying, tomorrow Yahweh is going to do this word in this land. And Yahweh did this word on the next day. And all livestock of Mitzrayim died, but of the livestock of the children of Israel, not one died. Then Pharaoh sent, and see, not even one of the livestock of Israel was dead. But the heart of Pharaoh was hardened, and he did not let the people go. And Yahweh said to Moshe and Aaron, fill your hands with ashes from a furnace, and let Moshe scatter it towards the heavens before the eyes of Pharaoh. And it shall become fine dust in all the land of Mitzrayim, and it shall cause boils that break out in sores on man and beast in all the land of Mitzrayim. So they took ashes from the furnace and stood before Pharaoh, and Moshe scattered them towards the heavens, and they caused boils, breaking out in sores on man and beast. And the magicians were unable to stand before Moshe because of the boils for the boils were on the magicians and on all the Mitzrayites. But Yahweh strengthened the heart of Pharaoh, and he did not listen to them, as Yahweh had said to Moshe.
All right. Thank you, Krista. All right, Grayson. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Grayson, who's come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set apart one bless him and his families, and blessing and prosperity in all the works of his hands. Amen. All right, you can continuing here in verse 13 to 22.
And Yahweh said to Moshe, Rise early in the morning and stand before Pharaoh, and say to him, Thus said Yahweh Elohim of the Hebrews, Let my people go, so that they serve me. For at this time I am sending all my plagues into your heart, and on your servants and on your people, so that you know that there is no one like me in all the earth. Now if I had stretched out my hand and struck you and your people with pestilence, then you would have been cut off from the earth. And for this reason I have raised you up, in order to show you my power, and in order to declare my name in all the earth. You still exalt yourself against my people, and that you do not let them go. See, tomorrow, about this time, I am causing very heavy hail to rain down, such as not been in Mitzrayim from the day of its founding until now. And now bring your livestock to safety, and all that you have in the field, for the hail shall come down on every man and on every beast which is found in the field, and is not brought home, and they shall die. Those among the servants of Pharaoh who feared the word of Yahweh made their servants and livestock flee to the houses. But those who did not set their heart on the word of Yahweh left their servants and livestock in the field. Then Yahweh said to Moshe, Stretch out your hand towards the heavens, and let there be hail in all the land of Mitzrayim, on man and on beast, and on every plant of the field throughout the land of Mitzrayim.
All right, our final reader, Janet. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Janet, who's come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set apart one bless her and her family, and send blessing and prosperity in all the works of her hands. Amen. Okay, you can take us from verse 23 to the end of the chapter.
Then Moshe stretched out his rod toward the heavens, and Yahweh sent thunder and hail, and fire came down to the earth. And Yahweh rained hail on the land of Mitzrayim. Thus there came to be hail and fire flashing continually in the midst of the hail, very heavy, such as had not been in all the land of Mitzrayim since it became a nation. And the hail struck in all the land of Mitzrayim, all that was in the field, both man and beast. And the hail struck every plant of the field, and broke every tree of the field. Only in the land of Goshen, where the children of Israel were, there was no hail. Pharaoh then sent and called for Moshe and for Aaron and said to them, I have seen this time. Yahweh is righteous, and my people and I are wrong. Pray to Yahweh, for there has been enough of the thunder and hail of Elohim, and I am letting you go so that you stay no longer. And Moshe said to him, As soon as I go out to the city, let me spread out my hands to Yahweh. Let the thunder cease and the hail be no more, so that you know that the earth belongs to Yahweh. But as for you and your servants, I know that you do not yet fear before Yahweh Elohim. And the flax and the barley were struck, but the barley was in the head, and the flax was in bud. But the wheat and the spelt were not struck, for they were late crops. And Moshe went out of the city from Pharaoh, and spread out his hands to Yahweh, and the thunder and the hail ceased, and the rain was not poured on the earth. And Pharaoh saw that the rain and the hail and the thunder had ceased. Yet he sinned again, and he hardened his heart, he and his servants. And the heart of Pharaoh was strengthened, and he did not let the children of Israel go, as Yahweh had said through Moshe.
All right, thank you, Janet. All right, thank you all you readers. Excellent job today by the readers. All right, the traditional blessing after the Torah reading. Baruch atah Yahweh Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Yahweh notena Torah. Amen. Blessed are you, Yahweh our Elohim, King of the universe, who has given us a Torah of truth and has planted eternal life in our midst. Blessed are you, Yahweh, giver of the Torah. Amen. Amen. Okay, now, I understand we had a few issues getting started, so because of that, as far as the way the live stream went, we have those that were not able to get in their prayer requests. So if anybody here had a praise or prayer they did not get to give, and if you're online, you can certainly go ahead and type that in. We'll try to get that done. So what I'll do is, let me go through the announcements, and I'll give you time to type those in, and then we'll cover them after the announcements. That'll give it a few seconds for you to, or minutes, maybe hours, who knows, okay? All right. So let's go ahead and go through the announcements. So first I want to welcome our guests. So first off, we have special guest Rabbi Steve doing the Torah portion today. I know it's been a little while since I've been up here, so. Okay. And so we do want to welcome our guests. We are children of Abraham, after all. We want to exemplify the trait of hospitality, and so we do want to help them feel welcome. All right. If you're online and you're new, we certainly want to welcome you as well as guests, and we also ask that you behave like a guest, and please be respectful of the fact that we are trying to, in the best way we understand, to study the Word and to glean from it, okay? All right. Now, you may like some of the things you hear, you may not, and that's okay. All right, we just want you to be respectful about how you handle that. Okay, so let me kind of explain some things about what we do here for those of you that are guests especially. We do this every Tuesday night, so this is our Torah Tuesday. So every Tuesday night on YouTube from 6:30 to about 9:30, maybe 2-3 hours. All right, depends on the night. Right now it's only 7 o'clock. We might get done a little bit earlier. That's, I know like you are like, oh, yeah, Rabbi. We've heard that before. Okay. But it goes about anywhere between 2 to 3 hours. So Tuesday night, we go through the Torah portion cycle. If you don't know what that is, that's taking the first 5 books from Genesis to Deuteronomy and breaking them up into a 1-year cycle to read through them. And so we go through about 5 chapters or so a week, and that gets us through the cycle in a 1-year cycle. The cycle starts right after Sukkot and ends right before Sukkot. All right, that's the tradition of doing the cycle. All right. So that's every Tuesday night at 6:30. We also stream every Saturday. Okay, we do it that Saturday at 1 o'clock. We go on the stream. We go live at 1:15. So the stream starts at 1, and we go live at 1:15. So at 1, for the first 15 minutes, we put some slides up of announcements, upcoming events, maybe a clip from one of the teachings, that kind of thing. All right, so that goes for the first 15 minutes, and then we sound the shofar, and we go live. That service runs about 4 hours and change, so it goes till about 5:30, generally, okay? So just be ready knowing that that's sort of full disclosure. It's a long service. But, what else are you going to do? It's Shabbat. I'm not saying that even like as a joke. I mean, what more would you really want to do on Shabbat but to study and to praise and to pray and to dance and to sing and to be together and interact, because we have a very interactive chat a lot of the time during the service, so it's really a fabulous time. And so you're welcome to check us out. That's also on YouTube, and we stream live. Okay, then we have a program for the children. It goes along with our weekly Torah portion cycle. Okay, so what we do on Tuesday, the children have available to them starting the previous Sunday for the whole week. It's called Parsha Pearls. It's a free program. There's no charge for it. It's on our website. We have a separate website for it, ymtoi.org. Our main site for the ministry is MTOI.org. So just stick a Y in front of it. That's the youth program, Young Messianic Torah Observant Israelites. Okay, and we have 2 programs there. It's in a form of PDF that you can download and has wonderful amounts of activities for the children to engage with that week's Torah portion. We have 2 programs, the Gem Seekers for ages 5 through 8 and the Pearl Seekers ages 9 to about 19. We say 99 plus because really I think anybody could benefit from these programs. Fabulous program put together by our incredible staff, headed up by my wife, Rebbetzin Julie, who's in Florida. Hi, honey. Okay. So visiting with her father, so she's having a good time. I spoke to her today. She's doing great. So anyway, the program. So it has a lesson from the Torah portion, lesson questions, Hebrew word studies, which is basically some of the Hebrew from the Torah portion in the form of flashcards. So you can learn some Hebrew, memory verses, word searches, crossword puzzles, mazes, crafts, notebook pages, coloring pages, even a song and a snack, all related to that week's Torah portion. So it's not like a little bit about the portion and a lot of fluffy stuff. This is everything I just mentioned is Torah portion related, okay? Even the song, the snack, everything. And so it's a fabulous program. It's all put together by our staff here. And so you're welcome to enjoy it for your Sabbath school. You're welcome to enjoy it for your homeschooling. Our children here do it during the sermon part of the message part of the teachings on Saturday. So we send them into a classroom where they work on that during that time. And it's just a great program. It's designed so that the children will engage with the word in an enjoyable way at their level. Okay, so it's free. It's a PDF. You can download it. And everything is in there, including all of the directions with pictures on how to make the craft, etc. Okay? So that's our Parsha Pros program. It publishes, like I said, on Sunday, like we're doing Vayira right now. That published a couple of days ago. We do this on Tuesday, and then there are congregations out there that will do this on Shabbat. Okay, so that's the schedule. So whatever you would think is normally scheduled for Saturday, we do it the previous Tuesday, and the Parsha Pros publish it the previous Sunday, so that you have a whole week to have it. All right, audio scripture readings. Okay, so we have our own Shira Wendling has read the scriptures for us and recorded it. We have it on the MTOI.org website, under media, under audio scripture reading. Fantastic job done. You can download them. They're free and listen to everything from Genesis through Revelation. The Torah portions are also recorded as Torah portions. So if you wanted to listen to Vayira, the first 5 books are recorded in sections by Torah portion. All right. Then we have Torah time on Thursdays. Okay, yeah, Torah time on Thursdays. I think we're going to change the name. I put it on the calendar as Teen Torah Time, just to make it a little more clear. And those of you, when I mention, I should mention the calendar. So all of the things that we're going to be getting to here in a minute, we have a calendar on our website, as we've always had. We've always had a calendar on the bottom of the homepage, but now I have a downloadable PDF with 4 months worth of the calendar. So April, it goes all the way through January through April. All right, so you can have that in your typical calendar grid, format. And it includes our Teen Torah Time, which is every Thursday at 1 o'clock p.m. with Rabbi Tom. But this is for the teens, okay? This is for those who have teen in their number, 13 through 19, okay? I don't know why I have to say that, but I know there's people that are going to try and get in that are not the right age. This is designed for that age group, to help them engage with the material. And it's been very well received, and the children are very much enjoying this program. Okay, so that's on Thursdays. Now, this is on Zoom, and to get the link for it, you have to email torahtime@mtoi.org. torahtime@mtoi.org. And then you'll get an autoresponder with the link. Okay? All right, so that's every Thursday. Then we have our zone meetings. Okay, we have our zone meetings. So we have 3 sections that we've sort of sectioned out the world by time zone so that we can do things on Shabbat when it is Shabbat where they are. So zone 1 is like the U.S., Canada, Mexico, South America, Central America, the islands that would be in that same range, etc. Okay, those are in zone 1. Okay? And the zone 1 is the only one that's done live on YouTube. What we do that is during the Sabbath service, the first Shabbat of the month. The first Shabbat of the month is zone 1, every first Shabbat of the month. That'll be January 1st, which is literally the first of the month, next Saturday. And the zone 1 simply means that during the teaching time, the people who live in those time zones will be asking questions, whether they're online or here locally. Actually, this one coming up is going to be all the online guys, okay? We didn't leave enough time for them last time, so we're going to give them the whole time this time that they need. And if they run out of questions, we can certainly come to the people live here. All right, so zone 1, which means that if you're on the live stream, we're going to ask you to indicate where you live, not your address, but like what country you're in, so we know, so make sure you're in the right zone. Because we want to be respectful of the people who live in that area getting to ask the questions. Now, wherever you live, you'll fit into one of the 3 zones. And so you just simply have to go to the right meeting to ask your questions. Now, all of you can go to every one of the meetings. Zone 1, Zone 2, and Zone 3. Doesn't matter where you live. It just means that the people that live there get to ask the questions. Hopefully that's clear enough. Okay, Zone 2. All right, Zone 2 is the second Saturday of the month. So that'll be January the 8th. And that's at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. Okay, so that one's on Zoom. Now we're back to Zoom like we did with the Torah time. Okay, this is on Zoom. You email us at zoom@mtoi.org to get the link for these meetings, zoom@mtoi.org. And it's at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. Zone 2 is like UK, the United Kingdom, Europe, Africa. Those people that are in the 5, 7, 8 hours ahead of us, 10 hours ahead of us type of thing, that sort of range, all right? And so they will get to ask the questions because it will be their Shabbat by that time. See, when we have our services here at 1, Zone 2 is about 6, 7 hours ahead at least, so that means it's almost, especially when it's wintertime, it's already after sundown by the time our service gets going. And so we want to do something while it's Shabbat where they are. All right, Zone 3. Zone 3 is Australia, New Zealand, Japan, the Philippines, Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia, China. They're all like in the range of like 12 to 17 hours ahead of us, depending on daylight savings and all that type of stuff that we do here. Okay, so those places, that's on the third Friday of the month. The zone numbers tells you what week of the month, right? Zone 1, first week, first Saturday. Zone 2, second Saturday. Zone 3, third Friday. The reason that one switches to Friday is because those people are so far ahead of us that if I do it on Saturday, it's already Sunday where they are. So Friday night, 10 p.m. Eastern Time, okay, which is anywhere between 10 a.m. and, early afternoon, wherever they are, okay? And so that is on January the 14th will be our one in January. Okay, so those are our zone meetings. Now, if you have any questions that you would like to submit for the zones, maybe you don't want, you won't have the time to be at all of them necessarily, but if you're not there, you're not going to hear the answer. That's actually, I should have said that every time we do this. We don't record them, at least not at this point. So if you want your answers, and we're going to answer these things maybe at a zone meeting, you have to be at the meeting to hear the answer. So we have an email, questions@mtoi.org. If you send an email here with your question, it will only be answered if we answer it at a zone meeting. I mean, in other words, I may have a paper, I'll have a list of them. I may bring some of them up during the zone meeting to answer and address during the zone meeting. So when you email us, please write on the subject line where you live, what country you're in, or what zone, if you know what zone you're in, okay? So we know which zone the question belongs in. This is not an email address just to ask questions and get answers. We're not going to respond directly to your email. If you want to email us and get responded to, email admin@mtoi.org, admin@mtoi.org, or call us directly here at our 423-250-3020 number, and we'll have somebody here to answer your questions. But if you think it's a question that would be good for the group to hear, you can also submit it to here, questions@mtoi.org, and maybe we'll get to it, maybe we won't, but at least it's like a suggestion box. Actually, it's literally a suggestion box. So that it's suggested questions, okay? All right, now let's get to our actual calendar upcoming things since I did all the zones all in a row. So coming up on January 1st, we have the Zone 1, then January 2nd, we have our Rosh Chodesh service. So this weekend, we've got back-to-back things happening. That's on a Sunday. All right, Rosh Chodesh for the month of Shvat. So we're going to get together here for a fellowship meal at 6:30, and then we're going to go live with our service at 8 p.m., and we'll stream that. Okay, so that's Rosh Chodesh, the new moon, for the month of Shvat. Okay, then we have our Erev Shabbat service. That'll be on the first Friday of the month, which will be the 7th. Well, we're going to get together a lot in January. Okay, we're going to get together on Saturday, then on Sunday, then the next Friday, and then the next Saturday. It's going to be wonderful. We just love it. Isn't it fantastic? And for some reason, there's food involved all the time. It's fantastic. Okay. Yeah, all right. One of the Jewish sort of memes is, we were in trouble, God saved us, let's eat. I mean, that's kind of, so it just kind of fits into that whole deal. All right, so we're going to have our Erev Shabbat fellowship on January 7th. 6:30 p.m. is when the service will start. So please get here a little earlier with your food and get set up so that we can then start the service right away, right on time at 6:30. We do not stream the Erev Shabbat. All right, then we have our leadership meetings, which will be on the 9th. For all you leaders, just a reminder, if you're paying attention to the study today, I'll maybe mention again on Saturday, it is a year in review. We want to just basically look back on this last year and just talk about, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and the inspiring and hopeful, whatever we want to call it, for whatever happened this past year, so that we can utilize that experience to go forward and be even more useful, hopefully, to our Father in the heavens in serving the body. Okay, so our leaders are scattered around the world. We meet once a month. I want you to pray for them, okay? If you have any, I don't know, I guess I'll say this as straightforward as I can. If you have any issue with any leader anywhere and you're not praying for them, then shame on you. You've got no business whining or complaining to anybody if you haven't gone directly to your Father in the heavens and talk about what the issue is with him. Just period. I mean, there's nothing else to say there, okay? That should be your first conversation, not your best friend or somebody else you want to have a pity party with. You should be praying about the issue with leadership, if there ever is one. Because if they're in leadership position and they're supposed to be, then Abba put them there. So he's the only one you should be talking to about them. Just to be, if you want something that's actually useful to do, pray about it. Talk to him. Okay, so our leaders are from all over the world. They lead small congregations and larger congregations that are affiliated with MTOI, and we get together once a month to figure out and hopefully be inspired by our Heavenly Father as to what we can do to be as useful as possible in serving his body as we work together to serve the body effectively. All right, so please pray for that. Then Purim is coming, all right? And that's on Thursday, March 17th at 6:30 p.m. We're going to have dinner, and we're going to read the book of Esther. Okay, so we're going to start that at 6:30, dinner and reading the book of Esther. And then we have Passover. And I know we're getting close to 200 people registered. I don't have the number. Saturday, we announced that it was 188, so I'm sure it's getting closer than that now to 200. So if you have not registered, please do so that we can start planning for the number of people that are coming. I know it seems like it's a long way out. Look, I can't believe it's already January, so time moves pretty quick. Maybe it's just because I'm almost 60, it feels like it's moving quick, but it's moving pretty quick, okay? I mean, it really felt like we just barely started the year, and now it's already over. So Passover will be here quickly. It's April 15th through the 24th. The 15th is a Friday, and that Friday night we're having the Passover meal. Then Saturday is the holy day, double blessing. It's a Shabbat and it's a holy day. Then the following Friday, the 22nd, is the last holy day. Because it ends on a holy day, which is a Friday, and it goes right into Shabbat, we're planning to stay through the weekend. That's why it doesn't end on the 22nd. It goes to the 24th, all right? Okay, to register, you can call us here, 423-250-3020, or you can go on our website, mtoi.org/Passover, and on the Passover page, there's a form to register if you would like to fill that out. We prefer you to call if you can and fill it out with us over the phone so we get all the information we need. We can answer your questions. But if you fill out the form online, and you can fill it out actually online. You can actually type in what you want, realize and hopefully understand that it does not email us that form. Fill it out, then you have to save it to your desktop or whatever, or your laptop, whatever you want to do. Save it, and then email it to us, or print it and mail it to us. On the Passover page, you can also pay for your Passover registration and for your meals, etc. There's a PayPal button right there that you can use, or you can mail that in to us to the address here, and just make sure you make a note on the check or money order, whatever, that it's for Passover. So we will make sure to credit it to your balance, all right? Okay, I think that covers for my announcements. So that's really good. And again, when it comes to Passover, we're very excited about it. It's going to be right here in Cleveland, Tennessee. If you know you're coming, I mean, you're absolutely confident that you're coming, just go ahead and register. It doesn't matter that you don't have all the funds right this second. Maybe you'll have more of it next month or the month after, but at least register, put a deposit down, and then we know you're coming. Okay? This is not me appealing to people who are not sure. I'm not trying to get people to come. I'm just appealing to those that know they're coming. It helps us to get that all done up front as best we can. It gives us a better sense of the numbers and the planning necessary since we are hosting it ourselves here in Cleveland. Okay? All right. Now, what do we have in terms of prayer needs? It's not our usual order of doing this, but go ahead.
There's many unspoken as well from Gail House for a 20-year-old on vent with pneumonia. From John McCormick, travel mercies for Bethany and I, as we are going to visit Morgan and Aaron, plus my grandson Emmett in Sweetwater, Tennessee. Love my MTOI family. Sciatica's still bad. Ruth Ann Soros, prayers I can safely get the snow off the roof of the back section of the house. Prayers for my mom who has a bad chest cold. Grandma needs surgery to remove section of her colon. From Carrie Ann Worthy, a prayer request. Prayers for the swelling and pain to go away in my wrist and forearm. Prayers the heat and leaks will be fixed this week. In the Haraldson house, praying for needs of the body. From Ashley Condon, prayer for the hubby to feel better after seeing Dr. Kozer tomorrow, and prayers for finding the right psychologist for testing for Agnes. From John Paul Dingman, please pray for my back. I overdid it today with Shama Steve. From MTOI, Philippines Jet, praising Abba for another beautiful year with MTOI, and I must say that my 4 years with MTOI had been so meaningful and can't wait for more exciting years to come and to serve more in full extent. Shalom. From Vaskin, praise that the Hersey family, the Gibbs family, and myself were able to travel to the Williams household for a week of fellowship. Prayers we can return home with no border complications. From Ashley Williams, prayers for driving safety as I bring my mom home on Thursday and drive to the Zimmerman's farm after. From M. Wallen, several unspoken, and please pray for Chelsea's health. Thank you. From Jim and Linda, praise for Rabbi Bergson. After 64 years, I finally found my teacher. Blessings on you all. From Kay Carrick, praise Yahweh. Prayers for our transition back to the States. Praying for doors to be opened, miracles that only He can give. Praising Yahweh always, for He is good and everything He does is good. Praise and thank you for Rabbi for being a sound mind and making time to counsel with us. From Walk Softly Upon the Earth, prayers please for our daughter who is still suffering a mental health crisis, and we are all very tired. I also really miss our older daughter and hope her eyes are open soon. Much grieving. Thanks. From Ruth Ann Soros, praise I have internet and it works amazing and super fast. Starting a new voyage in my life and it is going great now that I have internet. From Stan and Vicky Corbin, we want to praise Yah for allowing our nephew Gabriel to have lung transplant after being in the hospital for 5 months. Now he will start rehab. From Donna Stevens, praise to Abba for making a path for me to attend Torah Tuesday. I'm so grateful. Continued prayer to find stable and secured accommodation and income. Also from Donna Stevens, prayer for Abba's continued blessing over our MTOI leaders in Shamashim. May all the needs required by our leadership to help uplift and support the body be answered. From Joe DeLong, I have something going on in my back, having sciatica in my right leg. X-ray shows severe arthritis in my lumbar area. Next, maybe MRI to see if I have a pinched nerve. Prayers, please. From To Rhoda, prayer request for me to have counseling with Rabbi or someone anointed and appointed from MTOI. From Ken Thomas, praise Abba. I had to have emergency surgery to remove my appendix and all went well. Prayers for healing and pain relief. Thank you. From Ruth Ann Soros, prayers for everyone experiencing extreme weather conditions. And I believe that is all.
Okay, amen, amen. All right. I want to add on any prayers that we did not cover since the last time we got together, since Saturday, and people have called, and we certainly are praying for those things and all those unspokens. Father, we come before you, and Father, we just want to lift up all of the needs that you've heard spoken and that were unspoken. We want to praise your holy name for all of the miracles, small and great, that you do for us at all times, and those things that remind us that you're aware of us and that you care. And so, Father, we thank you and we praise you and we give you all glory and honor. And so, Father, we come to you also to lay our needs and our concerns at your feet, knowing that you hear and answer all prayer, and that this is the right place for us to bring all of our concerns to the throne, to your feet, so that you would have the right answers as to what should be done with these things. Father, help us to receive your answer, that we would have peace and joy to receive your answer, even if your answer is not the way we might want to do it, but recognizing that your way is always the right way. So, Father, we thank you. We praise you. We give you glory and honor for all things in the name above all names, Yeshua our Messiah. Amen. 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 All right. This week's Torah portion brought to you by, no, I'm kidding. All right, so this week's Torah portion, Vayira. We're going to go ahead and start discussing it. So we're going to try to do this. 2 rules. Again, rule number 1, let's try to go chronologically. So we'll start in chapter 6 and working our way through the end of chapter 9. It's not a hard and fast rule. We may jump around a little bit, but let's try to do it that way as best we can. And we're going to try to bounce back and forth between the live stream and the people here locally, as well as we're primarily looking for those things that you got out of it that would be helpful for your walk. Anything, also those things that you really don't understand, you may have a question about, or things you may want to make a comment about. And we're going to begin with Rabbi Tom.
Thank you. Just an observation, if I may. What impressed me is verses 4 through 8. It was true then, and it's true now. Yahweh says, I established my covenant with them. And that covenant, I thought, is still in effect today, and even in the land of our sojournings. We're in a sojourning, so that covenant still holds true. And he hears our groaning, and we're not enslaved by the Mitzrites, but we're enslaved by the Babylonian system. And also, he says, say to the children of Israel, I am Yahweh, and I shall bring you out from under the burdens of the Mitzrites. His promise to bring us out from under our burdens still stands today, and he'll deliver us from our enslaving, and he'll redeem us, and then he'll take us as our people. We have to consider ourselves Yahweh's people and acknowledge him as our Elohim. And then you shall know that I am Yahweh your Elohim. It's something we must know, we must be assured of. And then he'll bring us into the land. And our promise there is he'll bring us into the millennial reign in the kingdom.
Amen. Amen. Okay, so the section that you were just reading, this is where we get the metaphor for the 4 cups during the Passover Seder, the Passover meal. And I know I did a fairly extensive explanation of this in one of the Passover-related teachings. I don't remember which one. So if anybody remembers which one, that would be good. But I know I covered it in one of them. But we do put those playlists up right before we get to the Holy Days, and so you'll see this in there. But this is when we talk about, you hear people talking about the 4 cups of the Passover meal. You have verse 6 through 7 is where we really kind of through 8, where we have those 4 cups. It says, say therefore to the children of Israel, I am Yahweh, I shall bring you out. Okay, so the first cup has to do with being brought out. I'll bring you out from under the burdens. Second cup is deliverance, and I shall deliver you from your enslaving. Third cup is redemption. Okay, and shall redeem you with an outstretched arm, with great judgments. And the 4th cup is the cup of acceptance. And shall take you as my people. Okay? Now, not everybody does those 4 cups exactly that way, but that's, I know the verse it comes from, and so that's the way I've read it all these years. So that's the way we do it in our Passover Seder, and we will have that published. I think it's already on the website. You can download it, the Passover Haggadah, so that you can have the order of service that we do at our Passover Seder. Okay? So that's really important. Look at the order that we're dealing with. He says, I will bring you out. That's number 1. I'm going to bring you out where? From under the burdens. So a lot of you, if you think about your journey, when he opened your eyes and he poked your bubble, what did he do? He first started bringing you out from under your burdens, lifestyle burdens, choices burdens, relationship burdens that were burdensome things, right? It wasn't just any relationships, but the ones that were burdens. The choices that you made and the lifestyles that you may have had and all the financial burden, he helps to bring you out from under these things. He said, and then the next thing he says, and shall deliver you from their enslaving. So first he brought you out from under and then delivered you from the enslaving. So then we start a process in our growth of disconnecting from the things that are emotional, psychological linkages that enslave us to these things. He teaches them that they're going to change the master to whom they serve, that they're not going to stop being slaves, but they're going to come out from under the enslaving of the burdens of that system of the Mitzrites, and now they're going to be slaves to Elohim. And then he says, I'm going to redeem you. We are bought with a price. Yeshua redeems us. And so that's what we have to understand about his death. His shedding of his blood was a redemptive act. It wasn't just a sacrifice like you would think of in the temple, but it was a redemptive act. So when you redeem, especially we'll see this as we go into other Torah portions going forward after Moshe comes on the scene. We're going to, into the full Torah after the commandments are given. When Moshe, he's on the scene now, but I'm saying when he comes into the full giving of all the commandments, we'll see that when you do certain things, you may choose to redeem them. And redeem means I want to keep it and exchange it for something else. So redemption has to do with exchanging. Like you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Oh, that's the one that's the tithe. Oh, but I might want to keep that one. Well, you can. It's just going to cost you double. Right? So you take the 10th and you have to pay a fifth instead. So let's understand that redemption is the desire to exchange. So there's an exchange of value. Yeshua's exchange of his value was enough to be a value for everybody that ever would be born, live in history, going backwards and forwards. Okay, that's a value exchange. All right. So after we have been brought out from under, after we have been delivered from, then what happens? He redeems us, and then he accepts us. Now, he doesn't accept us first because we have to come into relationship. We call that covenant. He calls it covenant. And so in that relationship, he then accepts us. That's what happens at Sinai. Right? Exodus 19, he says, if you will do everything that comes out of my mouth, I will accept you as my people. And so there's your 4 cups, and that's his whole plan of salvation right there. Okay? Being brought out, delivered, redeemed, and accepted. That's the whole plan. Now, of course, in the plan also is the education process where he's going to teach you about him. And he's going to teach you about you. And he's going to teach you how to have you align with him. Where throughout your life, you probably were trying to get him to align with you if you even had any kind of vertical relationship at all. But it's all now about you, learning about yourself, learning about him, recognizing the disconnected places, the lack of congruence in all these different areas in your life, and then you need to now align yourself with him. So there's an educational part of this, an instructional part of this. This is where the Torah comes in. This is where Torah instructors come in. This is where the whole Melchizedekian priesthood comes in. So this is the whole plan is right there in Exodus 6, which is one of the reasons why I liked that I had the opportunity to do tonight's Torah portion, because that's such a critical piece right there. Okay? And so this is really important. The 4 cups. Okay, now, next person. And then after Justin, I guess we'll go to the live stream. We'll kind of bounce back and forth because I took a little bit of time.
Okay, my question is for verse 11, 13, and 29. Is this Yahweh, the way he spoke of Pharaoh being sovereign of Mitzrayim, showing that respect in the sense of how you've taught us, whether we like it or not, to respect and show recognition towards authority and structure in our life? Even people in the world like a boss or anybody that may be over us.
Well, I think there's a lot to that. Look, you have to recognize that right or wrong, these people have authority based on a position and a title, and so we recognize that. He didn't say to Moshe, just go and just talk down to this Pharaoh like he's a child. I mean, he's Pharaoh. So he is king over that land. And so, yes, absolutely. And so Yahweh refers to him that way. Live stream.
From Mark S. Chapter. Oh, no, never mind.
We're still in 6.
Yeah, we're still in 6. I have one question that regards 6:3 and 7:5. Is that okay?
Sure.
Can we say both Israel and Mitzrayim got to know Yahweh at the same time and through the same events, but through different paradigms?
Sure. There's a mixed multitude that ends up leaving because this wasn't something just like was apostles going to towns and telling stories about what they had experienced and hoping that the Spirit would inspire people to believe them. This was something they physically, literally all experienced. Everybody in the land of Mitzrayim experienced the plagues and experienced all of the signs and wonders, and it was kind of hard to deny them. They tried in the beginning, but it became really hard to deny them. So, because think about it. When one of the apostles walked into your town and started talking, you're like, yeah, you could certainly say that to them. Like, yeah, all right, whatever. Because you weren't there seeing or experiencing anything they were talking about. You had to decide if you believed them or not. Even when you came into this, everything that we believe is based on stuff that happened over 2,000 years ago. In addition to our own personal experiences, but really we're believing stuff that happened over 2,000 to 6,000 years ago. So it's a long time, these events that went on. Okay, you have 4,000 years of stuff happening, and then there's 2,000 till now. And so we're at about roughly 6,000 years. Even by the Jewish calendar, we're at 5,700 years, almost 5,800 years. So, I mean, that's a long time. And none of us have experienced any of these things that they're talking about here. We have our own experiences. So certainly they all got to know Yahweh in some way. And even the land's watching, because, when Moses is out there with the Israelites, later on we're going to see Yahweh say, well, I think I'm ready to wipe all these guys out. And Moses says, but all these people around us, they know you brought these people out of Egypt. So there was a word that had spread, and it was known that Yahweh, the Elohim of the Israelites, had brought them out of Egypt. All right, that was the only one you had for 6?
Also a comment from Ashley Condon on verses 6 through 9 that it still applies today, and that I wish I saw these and understood them sooner.
Amen. 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 Let me take verse 9 for a second. So we went through that whole, brought them out and delivered them and redeemed them and accepted them, and then we have a problem in verse 9. And Moshe spoke thus to the children of Israel, but they did not listen to Moshe because, pay attention to the reason, because of shortness of spirit from hard slavery. What in the world is shortness of spirit? Okay? In other words, it's probably a very good, at the time, understood idiomatic phrase. For us, it's a little bit tough because we don't know the phrase. For they were weak of will. They were beaten down. Okay, Paul, you said that. But it's a weakness of will. Shortness of spirit, maybe we use the words weakness of will. Someone beaten down. They'd lost, there was no more fight in them, or whatever. We can use all of our own idiomatic phrases to say the same thing. They didn't listen because they had been just so beaten down they couldn't believe it to be true. They couldn't just believe when Moses says, hey, we're going to be leaving here. And they're like, yeah, whatever. Remember, the plagues hadn't happened yet. They need to see all that. 2 things happen with the plagues. All right, we talk about this in our Passover Haggadah. In order to be set free spiritually, they had to be set free physically. But the physical had to come second. spiritual problem had to come first. So when they dealt with these plagues, the plagues actually were dealing with not physical things like frogs and hail, etc. It was making a mockery of the Mitzrayite gods. So their spiritual redemption started coming out, or deliverance started coming first. They were being set free from out of the spiritual bondage. Then they leave Egypt physically. And so here, they're being told these things, and they're just not listening because they're like, yeah, we're enslaved. Who are you? You're going to just bring us all out of this? This is Egypt. They've got all the chariots and the armies, and this is the center of the universe as far as they understood at that time, as far as on the earth and the nation and the power they had. And so we're just going to walk out of here? Well, no. We're going to have signs and wonders first. Then they're going to throw us out of here. They're going to send us on our way. It's going to be a whole different story. So that's a good point that was brought out by Ashley. Okay, Janet.
Thank you, Rabbi. I just have a couple of questions. So El Shaddai in 6:3. So when I look it up, it was the one who is more than enough, or the all-sufficient one. Can you expand a bit on that name, El Shaddai? Is that correct, or?
I accidentally turned off my mic. No, look, El Shaddai, the Almighty, the sufficient one. Those are all. We're trying to describe something that English doesn't really do sufficiently in terms of like a one-on-one. But he's saying, look, and I appeared to Abraham and Yitzhak and Yaakov as El Shaddai. Okay? And so he's saying, as the Almighty, the provider of everything, sufficient to anything. Anything else?
Yes. 6:6, when it says that, the latter part, it says, and I shall redeem you with an outstretched arm and with great judgments. But it's also in the next chapter when it says that he's going to redeem them by great judgments. So my question to you was, so when I think about great judgment, I think about righteousness, his righteousness, but I was wondering, the judgments were against the Mitzrayites, but the Mitzrayites, even though they were not in covenant, they were still. Can you explain that part for me, please?
All right. So there are Torah issues, and then there are, I don't know what we should call it, just universally understood behavioral issues. Okay? Yahweh never intended, and it shouldn't have been something he needed to instruct them, that man should not enslave man, and that man should not murder man, or man should not do certain things. But also with the Mitzrayites, and even the other nations that when we get to the land, all the ites that they deal with, all right? These are all nations that had earned in some form, we don't get to read about why, judgment from Yahweh. And Israel then gets used to be the instrument of that judgment. Just because we don't get to read about the why doesn't mean that it didn't happen. We just don't know what happened. And that's got to be good enough for us. So he said, I am going to bring my judgments against this nation. Well, part of it is, what did he tell Abraham? He said, and those who curse you, I will curse, and those who bless you, I will bless. Clearly, these people were being cursed by the nation they were in. So that brings a judgment right there. Not that that nation had to know that. That was just a promise he made to Abraham. And so I was going to bring, it's a reaping and sowing thing. Even other cultures will call it something like karma. That there's just this idea of you reap what you sow. It's a universally existent law that doesn't require you to believe in it or not. It's like understanding that if I take something and drop it, it falls. I don't have to believe it or not. It's going to fall whether I believe it or not. And so therefore, he's saying, I bring my judgments. In other words, there's a reaping what they sowed. And I need all of them and all of you to see that judgment. Okay, what else?
And the last question, Rabbi, I have is 6:12. When Moshe says that, the children have not listened to me, why would Pharaoh listen? For I am of uncircumcised lips. So was that because even though he was a Hebrew, they didn't see him as such? Or why is that uncircumcised lips, please? Thank you.
Okay. So what is the metaphor of circumcision, kind of picture? I'm not talking about literally, but it's the idea of cutting away something, okay? And so we have a metaphor that we'll read about again as we go through more of the Torah portions, the idea of circumcising, not just the flesh as in the man, a man doing that as on the 8th day, but the idea of circumcising a heart, okay? So we're not actually going to open them up and cut away flesh away from the heart, but it's about cutting away those things that don't belong, those things that need to be removed away. He says, my lips are not clean, is what he's saying. My lips are not prepared for this. My lips are not covenanted. I just met you with the burning bush, I don't really know what all of this is about. And this is really Moshe's whining. I hate to call it that. Look, pick somebody else. I don't want to do this. Why'd you pick me? Okay? And so, of course, he says that you've got Aaron, your brother, to help you with that kind of thing. But the thing is, he's just trying to throw up excuses. And so you may want to look in yourself and think about, Abba may have you to do something, but are you throwing up excuses? Or life presents you with situations where you need to step up and do something, but you're just throwing up excuses. Now, the reason we know, without any doubt, that there's a certain level of this that's excuses, because think about what you do. Now, let's take Moses' situation very specifically. Yahweh picked him to do something. Moses, at this point, if he had full emunah, would say, okay, I guess I'm able to do it, because if you picked me to do it, he wouldn't pick me if I couldn't do it. Instead, Moses was still in his flesh. The flesh was like panicking. The flesh was afraid. The flesh was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? I'm not really qualified to do this. The uncircumcised lips is saying, I'm not qualified to do this. And so how many things does Abba have you doing that you're not accepting that if he has you doing it, that you're able to do it? Otherwise, he wouldn't have you do it. Like I've always said about you being called at this time. He called you at this time knowing you could get there from here now. And I still hear some of you out there telling me, oh, Rabbi, I just don't think I can do it. Why don't you think you can do it? But because I keep making mistakes. Well, he knows that. He also knows that you can fix that. You can stop those behaviors and pick up new ones that are appropriate and all those kind of things. You can get there from here. So let there be a lesson when you read Moshe. Even Moshe had his fleshly moment, because that's a fleshly below thought. His above thought should have been, Yahweh said it, that's it. If he told me I can do it, I'm doing it. That's where we see almost, to Moshe's shame when it comes to the time, or maybe because of the discipleship process, when it comes to time for Joshua and Caleb. Joshua and Caleb are like, Yahweh said it, so let's go. Now, that could be because Joshua was more the sort of military warrior type or whatever it would have been. But, they're like, Yahweh said it, let's do it. David was the same way, right? David Amelech. Why would I be afraid of a giant? I mean, Yahweh can handle that. And I'm going to go out there and stand up for him, and he's going to protect me. So Moses did have a moment here. Remember, this is at the beginning, though, which is why you see Yahweh continuously, I shouldn't say continuously, on a regular sort of basis, test Moses, just to see where his head's at with all the things that Abba was wanting him to do. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay? All right, Michael. Then we'll go back to the live stream.
I had two. My first one's going to be quick here. We see verse 6:21. We've got the sons of Yashar. One is Korach. Is that the same Korach that tries to overthrow Moshe and Aharon later on?
Yes, what you see here is that this is Moshe's cousin, okay? Korach is Moshe's cousin. This refers to 6:18, right? And the sons of Korach, the son of Kehath, Amram, and Yashar. So Amram, okay, when we see that, then we see the cousins here, okay? Because Amram is Moshe's father. So we see that they're cousins. And this is also in verse 20 where we see this here, where it goes again. And Amram took for himself Yochebed, and he was, okay, so this is where you get to Moshe. So they're cousins. And so, yes, this is our Korach, our friend Korach, who we're going to have fun with later. Fine, upstanding young man, in his own mind.
So the other one I wanted to talk about for a minute, and you've already brought him up a little bit, was Caleb and Yehoshua, because I see this marvelous transformation with particularly Yehoshua. Is he's got his own book. It's after the Torah, and in his final address he says, "As for me and my house, we serve Yahweh." And I think it's really marvelous because we look back here in Exodus 6:9, and we have to know that he's one of those that came out of Mitzrayim. He was a slave when this was happening. So it doesn't say, in 6:9, Moshe spoke thus to the children of Israel, but they did not listen to Moshe because of shortness of spirit and from hard slavery, with the exception of these two guys. So they're short of spirit as well.
Yeah, everybody had to come through their journey, and you guys have to go through the same type of journey. And like newborns, you're going to need a lot of help, and you're going to not be able to do a whole lot for yourself in the beginning, and you're going to learn to take care of yourself more and more and do things for yourself as you kind of grow. And you're going to have to, by relationship, come to learn that he really is who he is. And there's a lot of that. Even you see that with Abraham's life. You see that in Isaac and Jacob's lives. That there were things that they went through because they didn't quite yet get who he is fully. And our journey is always going to be that way. And even John tells us, until we see him, until we're changed and we are like him, we're not going to really get it. Because we have to be changed from this corruptible into the incorruptible to fully get it. So that's where we're going to end up. All right, Michael?
Yeah, and the other point that you brought up that I really like is that David Hamelech, Yehoshua, none of these people, even Moshe, no idea what they're going to do. But they just, after Moshe comes to realize anyway that he actually is anointed, appointed, you've anointed, appointed me, and I don't know what this is going to look like. David Hamelech, I don't know what this is going to look like, me standing in front of this giant, but it's going to look like something.
Yeah. It's about trust and belief, right? It's really about emunah and bitachon. And they have that, in small amounts at the beginning, and it develops and grows until they have it in abundance. And then you can see that. All right, live stream. Anything else for 6?
Nothing else for chapter 6.
Did you, Steve, have something for 6? Okay.
Or just a couple of quick things. 6:3, it says, "Was I not known to them?" So maybe we could ask ourselves, do we actually know Abba, or do we just know of him? To me, that's a difference.
Sure.
And then 6:6, it says, "I'll bring you out," but that means we have to do something. He's just not going to take us by the hand and do everything for us.
All right, I like that a lot. I mean, look, it says, "I'll bring you out." And so he picked them up and just whisked them off, or did they actually pack their stuff and walk out? They walked out, and they packed their stuff. And they girded their loins and put on their sandals and had their staff in hand and all that other stuff, right? And then they walked out. See, this is all about the walk, isn't it? Your part is a part of it. He didn't just destroy the Mitzrayite, power center and their gods and everything through the plagues and everything, but he also insisted that we, or them at the time, but we would walk it out. Okay, I'm not doing everything for you. They still had to walk to Sinai and then walk to the land. He didn't just teleport them there. He didn't just give everybody a horse and a carriage or something. They had to walk. I mean, they may have had a few of those type of things, but they all walked. Excellent point. What else, Steve?
Okay, and then on 6:9, it said, "But they didn't listen because of shortness of spirit." To me, we should look at ourselves in the circumstances that could allow us to become short of spirit and not willing to take any more action when we need to.
Right. And actually, in my notes, I actually wrote loss of hope or courage. Shortness of spirit is like a loss of hope or courage. All right, chapter 7. Is that what you 4 or 6? All right, 6. Brian.
Shalom, Nasi. Really, it's just a quick comment regarding the Torah portion as a whole, but when we read that Yahweh says, I shall bring, my people out from Mitzrayim, we go on to read that he brings out the mixed multitude, right, which is comprised of Hebrews who know Yahweh from the standpoint of their lineage. They've heard stories of Avraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov, and then we have, Mitzrayim's who don't know anything other than the fact that this all-powerful being just destroyed Mitzrayim and made a mockery of their false gods. But in my mind, this Torah portion is a really awesome testament and a witness to the truthfulness of the Brit. When Yeshua, and all the message throughout the entire Brit is, eyes to see, ears to hear, and heart to receive. And obviously, when you only have 2 to 3 million out of the entire population of Mitzrayim that choose to follow Yahweh, it goes to show that not everybody had the heart to receive the revelation that Yahweh is who he is.
Exactly. Look, I've told you this recently, but I've said it a lot. Revelation is not just information that you get, right? They had it revealed to them that they were going to be free. Well, he's free to serve Yahweh instead of being enslaved to Egypt. But they had to receive that. Not everybody received it. That's why only 2 end up in the land from the first 603,550 of the men over 20. Think about it, 603,550 and 2 end up in the land. And that is a very sobering number. But they're the 2 that received the revelation. Yahweh said, this is a land flowing with milk and honey. Now, we're not to that chapter yet, but it's a land flowing with milk and honey. They received that. Not everybody else did. It was revealed to them directly. Talking about a direct download, it was given to Moses. Moses told them, this is a land flowing with milk and honey. Yeah, there's a lot of people there and everything else, but don't worry about all that. You're going to possess the land. So 2 people received that. They all heard it. 2 received it. So you're going to be among the 2 or the many? That's a small percentage. We're not just talking about like the 2 out of the 12 that went to spy the land. The people that they spoke to listened to the wrong group. They could have listened to the 2. They listened to the 10. All right, Justin, are we still on 6?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Just one more. I know you touched a little bit about the uncircumcised lips of Moshe, what he was saying here in 12 and 30, but it took me back to last week's portion in 14 here, where he's talking about how he's, or a 10, slow of speech and slow of tongue. And after that point, Yahweh's displeasure burned against Moshe. And it just kind of shows me how when Yahweh says that we can do something, we need to listen. We can really doubt ourselves, but he's telling him, even previously that, I'll make a way. I'll do this. Just trust and believe. And once again, here Moshe is again saying, I have uncircumcised lips. And just makes me think of how many times Yahweh tells us, and we still doubt.
Right. Okay, that's chapter 4, not chapter 5, but yes. Okay? It's like 4:10 through 14 or so. All right. So it's not just that, but it's, the self part. I'm afraid, or I don't want to do it. Moses didn't want to do it. Can we all agree? Okay? And Yahweh says, what's your point? And your point is, all right? Believe me, there's days when I get up and I'm thinking, I don't want to do this. Wait a minute, that's every day. And then Yahweh says, and your point is, and I get up and I get back to work. It's a lot easier if you don't waste that extra step, if you just go and do what he says. So I really don't go through that every day. But I can certainly see where someone could, because it's hard to do these things. Okay, life is hard, and apparently we suck at it. I've said that to you many times, okay? But in life, if we're in this covenanted part of life, this aspect called covenant, then he's going to ask us to do things that we are not comfortable doing. He's calling you out of your comfort zone, which means there's going to be things where you say, but I don't want to do that. Like counsel with a rabbi who's so red when you're, so white, whatever. This is the color code stuff. People online go, he's racist. No, it's a personality test with 4 colors, red, white, yellow, and blue. But anyway, the point is, You may not want to talk to someone as loud and aggressive sounding from a microphone. And I'm not that way necessarily, in counseling, unless that's the right approach that's necessary at that time. Because some of you will come in and you're just as loud and you need someone to be loud with you and kind of work with you. But if you need quiet and soft, I can do quiet and soft. And the thing is, you don't want to because you're afraid or because it's uncomfortable. It's not in your comfort zone. And so you hesitate or you try to find excuses like, I've actually had people say to me, I will never counsel with you. And I say, well, then you will never get the benefit of that. Now, that's your choice. Because my answer actually was, well, you should. Okay? I believe you when you say you'll never do it. Because I know the person. And I said, okay, I believe that. But you should. Because I can help you. And they look at me like, no. Well, in that case, I really couldn't help them if they don't want, I can't help you unless you want the help and you're going to trust the help. Abba's the same way. He can't do anything for you. Yeshua healed nobody who didn't believe. Right? 0 healings with people that didn't believe. He said your faith, your trust, your belief has made you well. Okay? Well, I don't believe you can heal me. Sorry, I'm healing you anyway. We don't see that anywhere. Okay? Well, not that he couldn't necessarily. I'm just saying is that he was choosing it as a part of a miracle to build faith, right? Isn't that miracles are supposed to strengthen belief? And so, Moses is just as human as the rest of us. He has his, his moments. He's got his anger moments. He's got his, concerns or fear moments or insecurity moments. He's like, I'm not real good at talking. And maybe he wasn't. And I was like, what's the point? I'm going to give you the words anyway. You don't have to be good at this. I'll just give you the words. Simple as that. And so here we have it. Okay, live stream. We're up to 7 or you got more for 6?
I've got a comment from Jet.
Okay.
Rabbi, can you give encouragement to our mishpokah to practice to becoming like Joshua, aside from doing counseling, listening, and watching your teachings? They're watching here. Ta-da.
Okay. Look, all I can encourage you is, Paul tells us about the 5-fold in Ephesians 4. Find some of those people that look like that's what they are, and then try it. Taste of it. The only way you're really going to know is to go ahead and taste of it. Even when they spied out the land, Joshua and Caleb came back and said, it's exactly what Yahweh said. There's a land flowing with milk and honey. Look at the size of the bundle of grapes we brought back. Now, of course, there's big walls and giants and all these other problems, but no, it's what Yahweh said. Yahweh will handle the problems. As simple as that, right? So for all of you that are just not yet ready, you're only hurting you. You're not hurting me. You're not hurting anybody else in the leadership or the structure. Anybody that didn't listen to Moses didn't hurt Moses. Anybody that didn't listen to Yeshua didn't hurt Yeshua. Anybody that didn't listen to any apostle, any prophet, anybody didn't hurt the prophet or whatever. They hurt themselves. Because some of you are thinking, well, I'm not going to talk to that guy. Okay, so don't talk to me. Find your help somewhere else. If you talk to me, I probably could help you, though. Okay, I mean this with 0 ego. He gives me what I need to say, and it works really well. So another way of saying is, I'm good at this. I don't mean but the function of him and his words and me doing it and implement it works very well. Ask the people that actually do it. Okay? But you're thinking, but I don't like you. You're a big, loud, obnoxious jerk. Okay, maybe you needed to hear that in that form. Maybe you need to overcome that thought process. I don't know. I'll be what you need me to be when you come and counsel. You may not like it or think that's what you needed, but it will be what you needed. And you might need someone who's going to talk to you in the face straight and cut through all the nonsense and the BS and just tell you what it is, to be blunt. Okay? Maybe, but you don't like it. None of us likes what we need. We like what we want. And so, somehow you got to overcome all that reluctance, that hesitancy. All right, chapter 7. Chapter 7, you can start.
From Pete and Brenda Lamb, Exodus 7:1 and chapter 4, verse 16, Yahweh refers to Moshe as an Elohim, mighty one. What is meant by the use of this term for Moshe? Isn't Elohim also used to describe judges, i.e. Psalm 82, verse 1?
All right, I'm not going to look up all the references, but I can answer the question. All right, look. And this has gotten already, people get mad at me and they have issues. When even our Elohim, even when Yahweh is teaching, he likes to use a way of putting a picture together. So he's giving you a relational metaphor. He says, in this situation, it's like saying that a man is the priest of his own household. Well, not really. He's not going to be doing sacrifices and priestly things, but it's a metaphor. In other words, the role and the position. So in the case of Pharaoh, Moses is going to be like Elohim. He's going to give the words to Aaron. Aaron's going to speak the words. And by the way, that may be everything we're reading that says, thus said Moshe. It literally may be Aaron talking, but they're thus said Moshe's. And Moshe's saying, thus said Yahweh. So it's thus said Yahweh to Moshe. Moshe's like the Elohim role, and Aaron speaking it to Pharaoh. So that would make Aaron, as a spokesperson for Yahweh, a prophet. So it's not that he literally was a prophet and Moses really was an Elohim. It's saying to paint the picture, this is how this is going to work. Does that help everybody? Okay? So like when I tried to say, and failed apparently with certain people out there, to say that in John, when it talks about the gardener and the vine and the branches and etc., and I said, well, in the vertical structure, we could take any place in that structure and somebody would be the gardener, somebody would be the vine, somebody would be the branches. You could take that in the house. The father of the house in a family would be the gardener, okay? The mother could be the vine, and then the children are the branches. Okay, so you can take that metaphor, and I used it, and of course people thought I was just deciding that I'm Abba himself, which is dumb, okay? It'd be like thinking Moses was Elohim now. Making a point by using certain metaphors and pictures we understand doesn't mean that they're literal. So Moses wasn't literally all of a sudden an Elohim, and Aaron wasn't literally like a prophet. But this was a role understanding. So in a role, the relationship as far as Pharaoh is concerned is that he's hearing from a prophet of Elohim, and Moses would be the one giving him the words. You can almost take the same role to Yeshua teaching the disciples, and we learn from the disciples. Of course, Yeshua is getting it from the Father, but in a sense, the disciples now are like the prophets. Yeshua is like Elohim, even though he also is Elohim. But you understand what I'm saying? Like the Father, because it's just moving the whole thing, shifting the top down however many rungs down the structure. But the structure still maintains the same sort of structure. Father, Son, and then the students. And then you go down, and you have someone that's sort of in the role of father, then sons, and you keep going down the process. Hopefully that makes some sort of sense. And so that doesn't make you literally like you're Yahweh or the Father, whatever. It just means that it's a role. And that hopefully makes more sense if we can really just receive. He's giving us a picture. Look, I've said this, and I know people hate when I say this, but it's like when we talk about the Father and the Son. Well, that's not literal. Oh, everybody's going to say I'm blaspheming. Well, because they're not human beings. Human beings have babies, which means you have fathers and sons, and then you have mothers too. If we're taking the full thing literally, then who's the mother? Well, there wasn't. And so it's a picture of the relationship. The Father and the Son have a relationship that we can only understand, as close as we can understand, is calling them Father and Son. So Yeshua always calls him Father, and he always calls him Son. Because that's a relational term, not a literal physical giving birth and parenting term. So hopefully we understand that. Which, by the way, if you've ever had adopted children or any of those other things, or a mixed family where a marriage came together already with children, you could still be father to a child that's not your child. Okay? It's a role by behavior and relationship, not necessarily just literally by giving birth. Make sense? And so Yeshua is referred to as one like and only brought forth from a father, because we're trying to understand an Elohim substance, which is like us, like an amoeba understanding us. It's just way impossible. And so when you see something like Elohim and prophet to Pharaoh, it's talking about functionally the roles would be like that. Okay? The authority with which Moses was speaking to Aaron was like the father talking to Moses. And Moses doing almost a Yeshua-like thing, he only told Aaron to say exactly what the father told him to say. And Aaron was to say only what he was told to say. Also then being in a Yeshua-like position as it keeps shifting down the rung. So let's take that metaphor. So the father talking to Moses, Moses is in like a Yeshua position. Moses talking to Aaron, now Aaron's in a Yeshua position. You see? And then Moses is now in the father's position. And then Aaron speaking to Pharaoh, he's now in a prophet because he's now speaking to someone that's not in the same structure. He's outside the structure with his own authority. Now he's being a prophet speaking to an authority. Because the prophets generally were speaking to kings. Does that help? I've never taught any of this, so just write it all down. Nobody ever asked before, so it's the first time I had to answer it. Okay? Well, at least not this extensively. I'm sure it came up before. But take this always through the whole of the scripture. When you see things playing through, understand that sometimes we're talking about not literal, but understanding functionally the role. Okay? Functionally the role. Do you all understand that all of the men and women of the world aren't all of a sudden going to be turned into brides? But we're called the bride. Okay? And so it's giving us a picture of understanding what we would be doing and understanding what we're preparing to do, whether we're male or female doesn't matter, because it's about a role relative to Yeshua. Does that make sense? Okay? Because some of you are trying to think, I'm not going to look good in that dress. Some of you are thinking literally about me, I'm definitely not going to look good in that dress. Now you can't unthink that. That's a disturbing thought. Yes, it is. Okay? I am here to disturb your peace. Mission accomplished. Okay. Look, you guys wanted me to do Torah studies again, so here you go. I'm going to get, you're getting your money's worth. All right? All right, back to chapter 7. Or are we still on 6? We're on 7 now, right? 7, go ahead.
From Mark S., verse 22, where do they get the powers to do the same as Moshe and Aharon?
All right, so this is an important piece of chapter 7 and chapter 8. So in chapter 7, verse 11, 22, and in chapter 8, verse 7, Pharaoh's musicians do exactly the same as Moses. Now, we don't know if they're just doing something that looks like, because in the movies they make it look like a total joke. It doesn't say that. It says they did the same thing Moses did. Of course, you got to remember, we're not in a world today where, well, I shouldn't say nobody does, but most people don't believe in the powers of black magic, dark magic, other magic, and everything else. There are people that still do. A lot of people have never experienced any of that stuff. So they don't picture that there could be magicians casting spells and doing things that look similar to or functionally the same as whatever Yahweh did. And so we see in 7:11, it says, but Pharaoh also called his wise men and practitioners of witchcraft, and they, the magicians of Mitzrayim, also did so with their magic. And of course, in the movies, it makes it look like a goofy joke that anybody would think is stupid. Here it says that they did what Moses did. And we see this again in verse 22. Okay, the magicians of Mitzrayim did the same with their magic. We see this in chapter 8 and in verse 7. And the magicians did so with their magic and brought up frogs of the land of Mitzrayim. So does he tell us how they do all this? No. It just says they did it. Now, when we get to chapter 8, we might as well bring this out now. I told you we wouldn't go perfectly chronological here. In chapter 8 and verse 19, we see there's a problem. The magicians go to Pharaoh and they say, "This is the finger of Elohim," but the heart of Pharaoh was hardened and he did not listen. So they said, "We can't do this." Okay? Then we see in chapter 9, actually, in verse 11, and the magicians were unable to stand before Moshe because of the boils, for the boils were even on the magicians. So Yahweh let them have a little fun, and they did a little stuff up to a point. Then they started going, this is way above anything we can deal with. Okay? And I like that it even said even the magicians had the boils on them. You know, they say, what's that phrase? Patient, heal thyself. Magician, heal thyself. It wasn't going to work. So I would believe that they were doing something to manifest something very similar, because clearly there were people and agencies in those days, and probably today too, that have real occultic powers. And they were trying to maintain that stronghold on Egypt, on Mitzrayim. And Yahweh was breaking the spiritual strongholds before he brought him out of physical bondage. And that was really the purpose of the plagues, was to break the spiritual bondage. All right, next question. Still in chapter 7?
You kind of touched on it, verse 11. Ashley is wondering why did Yahweh have Moshe do the same thing that the Mitzrites could do? Was it just a front for the showdown that was to come? Sorry if this is silly, I'm hung up on it.
Yeah, no, it's not silly. It's look, Yahweh did certain things because they were making fun of their particular deities, their gods. It wasn't because he picked things that they could do. Each thing was done to make fun of something, and I go through this in our Passover Haggadah. We go through each of the plagues and which gods would have been shown to be of no use, shown to be impotent, shown to have no power. All right? I mean, they even had a frog-headed god, so he brought the frogs. So you want to worship frogs? Here's a bunch of frogs. Yahweh has a sense of humor. Now, of course, they weren't able to imitate everything he did. And so there you have with that. All right, chapter 7 out here. Steve.
All right, just on 7:1 it said, "See, I have made you Elohim to Pharaoh," but to me, I was looking at it a different way, because appointments come from authority from those only authorized to give them, and Abba was authorized to appoint Moses as the Elohim and Aaron as the prophet.
Correct. Good observation. Okay? There should not be any self-appointing. You're either going to be appointed directly from above, and that's something that people aren't going to always trust or believe, or you're going to be anointed by someone that they already accept as anointed, and that person then anoints the next ones. And so, like Yeshua picked the 12. Okay? Moses then anoints the Levites, Aaron, and especially the Aaronic priesthood. And so he ends up anointing Joshua, right, Yehoshua. And so the anointing comes from another anointed person or being, because it could come from above. And I know this is a big question, and everybody asks, well, then, who anointed you? And look, I got it from him. You don't have to agree. You don't have to believe it. Nobody anointed me. Okay? Which makes that risky, doesn't it? Because then you have to decide if you believe that or not. There are people out there claiming I got ordained here and I got ordained there. None of that happened. I've had a few organizations recognize me after the fact. Okay? But nobody did any of that stuff. Okay? I just was teaching, and the congregation said, they recognized that I was teaching like one with authority, like what they said about Yeshua. There was something different about the way I was teaching. That was the recognition of the anointing. Okay, so it wasn't that I went through a yeshiva and a seminary and I got a certificate and all that other stuff. That puts you in a challenging place, though, doesn't it? Because now it goes to where I've always said, and I've got one group out there, one guy particularly, and his wife really hated my answer, which is, it's not for me to tell you where I get my authority from. You need to figure that out. I don't have a group to point to that you can decide is legitimate or not. So what do? You taste of it. You listen. You experience. You know? You know what? It's kind of like what Yahweh said. When Yahweh said, if these men die like all men die, all right, well then, Moses, right, he said that. If these men die like all men die, then fine. But if they die in a way that could not otherwise happen, well, then we know Elohim's involved. Well, if you hear a teacher teaching and your eyes and the Ruach are also saying, wow, that's it, that's right, it's all connecting, it's all opening up, it's all making sense, there may be something to an anointing there. Again, it's not from the person claiming it. So I don't walk around saying, you need to listen to me, I'm anointed. What I always say is what? You need to find someone who's anointed and listen to them. And if it's me, then you need to listen. If it's not, then go find one. I've never said anything different. Never. Okay? Yet there are people out there thinking that all I want to do is make everybody has to just listen to me. No. Find Ephesians 4 people and listen to them. If it's me, then listen. If it's not, go find one. I don't know what else to tell you, okay? The teaching itself has to be, Yeshua said the same thing. He said, if you don't believe I'm really of the Father, then believe the works. Well, look at the works that he's doing through me, or that are being done by me, and you can decide if he's doing them or not. If you think I'm doing them, well, I don't know how you think that, but okay. All right? Yes, the humor's probably more me than him, and some of the other nonsense, but the insight, the inspiration, the revelation of what something really means and connecting verses, if you think anybody and everybody could do it, why is it that nobody else is doing it? And I'm not saying that in any kind of arrogant or cocky way, although I'll be accused of it anyway. Because I look for people that could do or are doing what I'm doing. And you've looked too. I haven't found any. Okay? That doesn't mean anything just because I said it. You got to ask Abba what that means. Is that fair? I'm not claiming it means anything. I'm just telling you a fact. I've looked, I haven't found. If you've looked and found, then tell me. Okay? And I won't argue with you. I'll go and listen and see. It's so funny how many people tell me, though, oh, Rabbi, I listened to this guy. Man, he sounds exactly like you. And I go and listen. I said, what are you listening to? Because he has a New York accent? I mean, I don't know, because he's Jewish and has a little bit of, but that doesn't, it's the words and the content, not the accent or the delivery. Sure, maybe they're loud and kind of whatever, expressive like I am, but what's the message? What's the insight? What's the revelation that's there? How are they connecting the dots? Do they even really know what the words mean? And if you listen to most of my 500 teachings, you know that the words don't mean what you thought they meant. At least if you agree with what my conclusions were. And then you'll listen to other people who still think they meant what you used to think. Well, clearly there's something different going on. Yes? No. All right? I don't know why I can't find others. I don't know if they're just deciding to be deaf, dumb, and blind in some ways. I'm not saying that in a nasty way. I'm saying I don't know if they're seeing it and just they realize it won't be popular, or it's just so against what they always thought, so it can't possibly be true, or whatever. I don't have that issue. If he shows me something that totally flips something inside out and upside down, I'm good. I'll take it. We'll go with it. You want to tell me grace isn't the way everybody says? No problem. Just help me prove it, defend it, etc. Okay? I have to be able to do the 4 steps. I got to understand it. I got to be able to do it. I got to be able to defend it, and then I got to be able to teach it. So if he wants to pop my bubble on something, I'm saying, fine. Help me understand it so I can do it, so I can defend it, so I can teach it. And then that's why we make 47 parts for something, so that we can make the full case argument on why something that you've always heard was one way is really not that way. Because people say, oh, but, the simplicity of Messiah. Oh, he's simple. Man is convoluted, the whole thing. Understanding grace is simple. The only thing that's hard is that you were taught it wrong for 2,000 years. That's what makes it hard. If you were never taught it wrong, it'd be easy to understand. All the things, salvation and everything else that we teach about, would be simple if you weren't having to swim upstream against all the wrong teaching. Because there are people who say, why should it take so long to explain something? Because you were taught so wrong, and you won't receive unless I actually go through and address every single thing you would throw at me. You ever talk to somebody and they go, oh yeah, well what about this verse? Right? You've had those experiences? Well, I address all that in every teaching. Everything that you could pretty much throw at me, but what about this verse? I cover it because I know you're going to say, what about this verse? That's the defending part, right? The third step. Because some people are like, well, you already made your point in the first 4 parts. Why are you still teaching? Because I have to hit all of the defending parts. All the parts where someone might go, oh yeah, but what about over here? All right, so let's cover it. Before you go, what about over here? That make sense? All right, that was your little mini sermon. Couldn't help myself. All right, Steve.
One other thing. At 7:13, Pharaoh's heart was strengthened and did not listen. So it makes me want to think what kind of circumstance I could find myself in, or we could find ourselves in, that we would strengthen our hearts so much that we would bring ourselves more hardships.
Okay, so here's an example of something I taught that you understand that isn't translated very well. A lot of verses that people know about, when Yahweh hardened Pharaoh's heart. And it really doesn't mean that in the Hebrew. It's the idea of strengthening it in the direction it already wanted to go. In other words, he really wanted to just slam down the hammer on the Israelites, had a moment of panic, because after all, the plagues got his attention. And so in that moment of panic, he's just said, okay, but he really didn't want to let them go. And Yahweh wasn't done, so he gave him some strength of courage. In other words, what it says here about the Israelites, it says their spirit, right? What happened to their spirit? They had shortness of spirit. They lost some hope and courage. That's what Pharaoh had. He had shortness of spirit. And Yahweh strengthened it. He didn't strengthen it like in terms of making him not do what he wanted to, because that's what it almost sounds like when he hardened his heart. Pharaoh wanted to let them go. Oh no, Yahweh wasn't going to let him do it. No, he didn't want to let them go. He was a little bit weak at that moment. And so Yahweh strengthened him to do what he really wanted to do. He didn't want to let them go. And Yahweh wasn't done with his plagues. He still had to break the back of all of the false gods in Egypt, with all of the different plagues attacking all the different deities and showing them all to be useless. So let's be careful in most of your translations where it doesn't say strengthened but hardened. It doesn't give you really the right insight. It doesn't give you the right insight. It's like I was listening, somebody pointed out a video to me today where it talked about, Yeshua being the end of the law. Well, that doesn't in itself really tell us what the word end means. But if you can understand in the context and look up the word, you'll understand that it means that he's the point of the law. In other words, it's the end result of the law is to become Yeshua. See, but again, unless you know how to read the word correctly and get into the Greek and understand the underlying Hebrew even of that, you can have somebody tell you, see, the law's been done away with. The law's finished. He's the end of the law. He's the end result of the law. You do the law, you do it in covenant, you do it in the fruit of the Spirit, and you get to become Yeshua. That's the end result. But see, without that term clarified, you'd be in trouble, right? So let's just understand that there's lots of examples of this. All right, Paul.
May I make a comment on what you said about risks?
Sure.
It's on me. When you said risk, we are not risking anything. All of the risk is on you. And that, Rabbi Meshach, you are literally laying down your life for all of us.
I appreciate that.
And I want to praise Abba and thank you.
Amen. I appreciate that. And look, the scripture that says that basically says you're going to teach, you're going to lead, there's a double judgment. There is a risk. And if anybody thinks I don't take that seriously, well, then you don't know me. Okay? Those of you that know me really well, you know how serious I am about all this. Okay? All right, Janet?
I second what he just said. That was really good. But Rabbi, verse 11, 7:11, when talking about the magic, right? That they were doing, and then I was thinking they were doing magic, right? Like the world is doing so many things that obviously are not aligned with Torah, but the magic was deceiving. Right, it was strengthening that. So I think that from what I take from my own life, even when I talk to my kids, is that we need to really, if you want to know the truth, that there's only one truth. The rest may look enticing and appealing, whatever, but it is deceiving, and that's kind of what I take from it. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
And then for the heart, my own. I mean, I know that sometimes a lot of times we don't want to do things that we're supposed to do. All of us, I guess, we have different weaknesses on where we can harden our hearts, like Pharaoh did, right? But I do see that whenever I press through, whenever I say, okay, I'm not going to go with my weakness, but I'm going to do what I'm supposed to do, then it becomes really easy to do. Does that make sense? Yeah?
Sure.
Okay. And then my question was 7:25, when it says that, where is that? Oh, is that 25? Maybe I wrote the wrong one. But there's something that, there's one verse that says, after Yahweh struck the river. Where is that?
It's 7:25.
Yeah. Yahweh struck the river, so it was, even though it was it Aaron with it was Moshe with the rod, but it was Yahweh who did it. And so that makes me think about what you were talking earlier about counseling. Like I've told you this, and I do believe this 100%, not just from you where you are, but even in counseling, that I do believe is Him speaking to us through you, but Amen. He is speaking to us.
Amen. Appreciate that. Okay, Denise?
If I may talk on what you were addressing, for me, learning Torah, I thought I learned years ago, but coming to find out after listening to your teachings that I had to unlearn a lot of stuff for me to even comprehend a lot of the things that you were teaching on. And now I've learned to where I can line up or check my actions with Scripture and have an understanding and a basis that I didn't have before. So really, Father Yahweh is the one who reveals. And for those that don't see it or don't know or comprehend, what we've learned, unless you've experienced it, the teaching and having your bubble popped, you're not going to understand, I guess. I don't know.
It's true. It's true. Look, there are a lot of people out there that watch some of the teachings, and they think they're okay or this or that or whatever, but if they don't really understand, or I shouldn't say that, if they're not really prepared to receive, they will miss a lot that was there, that was there, but they didn't catch it even though it was there. Just like a lot of you will listen, and then if you listen to a second time, it's almost like listening to it for the first time. And you listen a third time, and there's enough in there because of the level of unlearning necessary and allowing yourself to receive something different. It's going to be challenging, which is why I say even teachings you've listened to, give it 6 months or a year and go back and listen. Now you're in a whole different place in your own walk and growth, and that teaching may have a whole lot of new value to it. Because it is, I believe, and as was stated here, it is His words. And if they're His words inspired that I'm saying, then His words are going to give you, just like when we read the Word, you can read it over and over again and get more out of it each time. The teachings are exactly the same, okay? I don't know how other people, I'm just talking about my own teachings. I'll go and listen to them and get something out of them that I don't remember when I said it. Because I remember, I'm not reading from a script. I'm just up here, openly allowing it to flow with whatever He gives me to say. And so I'll go back and not even remember I said certain things just because I'd never said them before. Maybe you never even thought them before I said them. Okay? And so just get that value out of the teachings that way. And if you only listen to the teachings once, I think you're getting very little out of it. Even though you may tell me that you got a lot out of it, I think you've only scratched the surface. There's just no way. Okay? Look, I don't get anything out of it if you listen to it once, twice, 10, or whatever. It doesn't affect me any. I don't get royalties or anything else. I just trying to tell you, because it's to your own benefit, that you really need to listen to these things more than once. And some of you that are new are thinking, but there's 500 of them. Well, you got a lot of free time that you waste on other dumb things, so you have plenty of time you could be listening. Okay? And so you don't need to watch Netflix as much or some other thing or be on Facebook for hours. You can listen to some teachings. But don't listen to them. Listen to it the first time, but then study it the second time. In other words, listen and study and write notes and meditate on and think about how it applies in your life. Because every single teaching I did was meant to be useful right now. In other words, it's functional in your life now. You can apply it and use it. Okay, it wasn't just interesting. Okay? All right, Michael.
I wanted to, I had a couple of things to say, and I forgot one of them. But when you were talking about the word end, you know, Yeshua is the end of the Torah, it occurs to me as we're reading this, and one of our brothers here, Rocky, love him to death, looks up words, you know, that you wouldn't think you need to find when he's reading this. And I kind of applaud that he does that, because here in English, we'll read a word, and if it's got, say, 4 definitions, we just pick the easiest one, the one that makes the most sense, the quickest, you know. But it seems to be that in the Hebrew, if a word's got 4 different definitions, they all have to apply for that word to properly fit. Am I correct about that?
Well, I mean, not always all 4 would fit, but I mean, you have to just look to make sure you got the right context with, like with tamim, and you know, it's translated, the primary translation for a lot of people is perfect. But I think it more often is actually the idea of being filled with integrity, which is an option, is one of the definitions of the word. And so it's just a matter of looking in the context. Is there actually this expectation, as we use the word perfect to mean, of literally being without blemish, without flaw? That's what perfect means. And does Yahweh really, when he says, be perfect as I am perfect? Well, he is perfect, so with him it means perfect. But for us it means to strive for perfect, which is the integrity issue. Okay? And so it's the biggest problem is that they're not looking at the context. You know, it's funny. My father, you know, when I used to ask him what a word meant, he would tell me to go look it up. But he'd also say, well, read, and you might be able to just figure it out from the context. You might not know that word, never seen it before, but if you understand what everything else is going on, you can get a sense of what that word is trying to convey, because it'll be consistent with the point being made. And so when if you know Yahweh and you know human beings, you know that there is no expectation of us being actually perfect. There is an expectation of us wanting to be. There's an expectation of us striving to be. And so that's where we have to then pick the definition of the word that fits the full picture, an understanding of what remember, words are all about what? Communication. They're being used to communicate an idea, concept, thought, information from me to you, from him to us, right? 2 beings trying to communicate information. Well, if you don't understand the word the way I meant it, we're not going to communicate right, which is why we have to have all that context stuff. Who is the speaker? What is his agenda? What's going on at this time? What's the receiver doing, and where are they at? Because when he's talking to the Jews, it's not the same as when he's talking to the Gentiles. Because he already expects that the Jews have a certain level of relationship and understanding, and so there's certain things he doesn't have to say to them, because it's already built into 4,000 years of history. Well, not exactly. Obviously, you don't go all the way back to the beginning. Judah comes later, but I'm saying, but you have all this history. Okay? So let's give it 2,000 years of history. Because from the beginning, I guess you get Around 1948 years into it, you get Abraham. So then a little after that, you're going to get Jacob and then Judah. That's a lot of history. And then if he's talking to them who've been brought through this covenantal process, he's got an expectation. So the context is important. Knowing Yeshua is talking to a Jewish audience changes so much of what Christianity has taught you and makes it clear that they were wrong, because they're acting as if he's talking to everybody. And so they think he's saying things he could never be saying to that audience. Because if he did, they would have had a cow. Okay? Literally, cows would have just been running everywhere. Okay? And so that's the biggest thing that we really struggle with, is the contextual way of reading, so that we know that the words are being understood correctly. Like when you're told that grace is unmerited favor. Well, you know what? Take everywhere you see the word grace. Just have fun with it. Go look the word grace up everywhere it appears and change it to unmerited favor and see how dumb it sounds in most places. You know, peace, love, joy, and unmerited favor to all of you. What? Now, of course, if you were a Jew, you would know that one of the normal, common things for a Jew to say to another Jew is, may you merit his favor. You wonder if any of the early apostles who were Jewish would have said things like that. May you merit his favor. Peace, love, joy, and may you merit his favor. Of course, oh no, it's unmerited favor. So then how did Noah win the lottery? Well, only because nobody was meriting any favor anyway. I mean, right? Earlier in the 2 verses earlier, he says, everybody's committing evil and continuously doing all this wrong stuff. So how did how did Noah get to be the guy that just randomly picked? Because it says, you know, by grace, Noah gets picked. Well, maybe because he merited it, which we see in chapter 7, and you know, it says that he was righteous in his generation. Okay? So there's a good little side lesson in here. We really have to make sure that we understand how much we really don't understand, because the people teaching us didn't understand. And that perpetuated over 2,000 years, created a lot of wrong understanding. Which now I have to do 59 parts to explain things to you so that we cover everything. Okay? Because of all of the problems that were created by the wrong understanding being taught for all these years. All right, Michael.
Well, thank you for being willing to stand up at this podium for 59 hours of teaching and make this thing happen.
Well, there you go.
But the part of the reason I brought that up was because shortly after I got this is the first copy of this I've ever actually had, but shortly after I got this, I ended up in the New Testament, and I ran across Matthew 5:17, and complete right there at the end of that sentence just tripped me up big, and I had to take a break from this for probably a week or two to really sit down and think about that one. The conclusion that I came to was we need to apply all the definitions of the word complete in order for this to work in every possible context. And then you have the fullness of understanding of what he's saying there.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's why when he says, I didn't come to destroy but to complete, well, then let's look at the verses where he said, I came so that your joy might be complete. So if we're going to use complete meaning it's completed and now finished and done away with, well, then so is joy. Well, that doesn't make any sense. But, you know, we're not going to pick and choose arbitrarily for our own convenience the definition. It has to be the definition that fits what's going on. Fits the speaker, fits the agenda of the speaker, the message, the point the speaker's making, fits the context of why he's even saying it. So I've told you with context, we want to know who's speaking, who's the audience, where are they, when are they, like what's the time frame in history, what's going on, and most importantly, why is it in our book? In other words, the people in this book that we read about said much more things that we don't read about than what's written. Most of what they said in their lives doesn't get written down here. So why is it these things that we're reading? In other words, there has to be a reason. And so was the reason to undermine the entire front half of the book and just say, well, Yeshua's here, you can forget about the whole front half of the book. It's just interesting history. Even though it was the whole point of everything that happened in the book was to get the people covenanted and to live in covenant and keep covenant. Nah, Yeshua, that was too hard. He came and just did away with all that. and then we buy into it because it makes our life, we think, easier. No, living uncovenanted is not easier. It is way harder. It may be simpler, meaning that it's like flowing with the tide instead of going against it and swimming upstream. But you know what? You're going to end up in a place you don't want to be, swimming down with the tide. Because at the end of it is a cesspool. You may want to swim upstream and get out of that cesspool stream and go into the stream that leads to the living waters. Okay? Ben. And then you getting ready over there, Grayson? You got some for 7? Okay, Ben, and then we'll go over there.
All right, so chapter 6, we get to see and read how the children of Israel are about to be like delivered out. And it transitions to how we can, like, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm trying to contrast it, but like we get to see two sides, how like on one side we can be the children of Israel or like Pharaoh, if we're like our own king sitting on the throne. Like,
yeah, no, I understand what you're trying to say. Look, they started off as slaves, and they had no authority. And this problem does come up once they're set free. We don't see it yet here necessarily, but it comes up when they are set free, where they're thinking, well, I'm free now. I can do whatever I want. And Yahweh's like, well, you can. It's not really smart. You can do what I want, and I can give you everything. That's why he explains it to them in the covenant. He says, you know, if you will listen to what I say, I will give you everything. If you want to just do everything your way, you're going to end up in all kinds of ditches. You're going to end up in a ditch, and it won't go well.
okay, so I think you explained it.
Okay, there you go. So kind of if you want to use the Pharaoh idea, if you're going to go into self-sovereignty, you're going to end up like Pharaoh. You're going to end up in destruction. Okay? With frogs. Okay, is that what you said? Okay. All right. Tony, did you have something for 7? 8. Okay, so let's go for 7 over here.
From Taylor, verse 19, out of curiosity, was water already collected in jars, changed along the river? Also, was this plague a slap in the face because of the children dying before?
7, what, 19?
Verse 19.
Okay, I understood the first part of the question. What was that about the children part, though?
It says, also, was this plague a slap in the face because of the children dying before?
No, we deal with the children. I don't know. I'm guessing where you're going with the children dying, like when Pharaoh wanted to kill the children. That's going to be the last plague. It's going to be dealing with that. This one, they did store water in jars. They used them for a lot of different rituals. There were different oblations or water rituals that they had. So finding blood even in the containers was showing that it wasn't just something that was going on in the river or just like some silt or something. It could have made it look red, but like even water that wasn't even in the river that had been drawn already would turn into blood. Okay?
That's all for chapter 7.
Okay, chapter 8. Do you have 8 ready?
Mm-hmm.
Good. You go to 8 because we're out here for a long time. We can go to you.
From Mark S., verse 26, what is the meaning of abomination of Mithridates?
Verse 20, what'd you say?
Chapter 8,
26,
verse 26.
okay. Okay, so this is about, again, perspective. He's saying if we do something that would be abominable to the Mitzrites. Mitzrites worshipped cows, worshipped bulls, worshipped a lot of things that were animals. So if we were to do these slaughterings in their face, so to speak, instead of going 3 days journey out, this could really be a problem here for the Mitzrites. So it wasn't like a specific thing. It's just something saying if we do things that are abominable to them, like slaughtering animals that they worship, they may have a problem with that. Okay, next question.
From Donna Stevens, verses 7 through 8, magicians could bring the frogs but couldn't get rid of them and needed the anointed and appointed to pray to get rid of them. It's like some of those issues we can bring ourselves but can't handle.
Oh, I like that. Very nice.
From Kenneth Bishop, verse 23, about Yahweh putting a ransom between the peoples. What is the ransom? Does this have any connection with the coming death of their firstborn?
Verse, I'm trying to see what this is. We're in 7?
Chapter 8, verse 23.
Right, 8:23. I shall put a distinction, so it doesn't say ransom there, a distinction between my people and your people. Tomorrow the sign shall be. Oh, 2009 says ransom? Ah. Okay, so when you look at the plagues, Israel experiences the first 3. And so as we're going here into 4 with the flies, he sets them apart and they don't have the same experience. So it's not so much a ransom, but I think distinction in the 98 is a better translation. I've got the 98 that I read out of, so. So you're going to see that Israel is not suffering the same things as everybody else at this point. They did first, and then starting here, they don't. So the first 3, and then after that, they're protected. Okay?
That is it for chapter 8.
Okay, anybody else out here for 8? Tony had an 8, right?
So this is a thought process, and if I'm wrong or falling short, just interject. Verse 13 and 14, and Yahweh did according to the word of Moshe, and the frogs died out of the houses, out of the courtyards, and out of the fields, and they gathered them together in heaps, and the land stank. And so I was thinking, with smell, what's the importance of smell? And quite often, smell can alert you to something that hasn't yet come into vision, and it can also, after that thing has left your sight, it can still linger and bring to mind what has happened. And I was thinking, as we go through the walk, and of course, maybe not so much literally, but there are smells, that can alert us of stuff to come. And then even after we've maybe stepped off the path and gotten dirty, but we're trying to get, back on the path, but we don't want to deal with that. But, we're not touching it anymore, but we're back on the path and we're stained and we're stinky and we're nasty. That smell is there. It's lingering to give us what are you going to do? And the land stank, and it's still, even the frogs, even though they were dead, it's no longer a problem. That smell is still there, as bringing it before their thought process, even when their eyes no longer had to be looking at it.
I like the way you're putting that together. However, my experience has been that it's one thing to say they put them in heaps and the land stank and there was like a place so you could smell that everywhere. I find that most people seem to be oblivious to their own stink. I'm just saying. And so I don't know that the metaphor plays out the way you kind of hoped it would there. But in some ways, I like it in general. The general idea that as a nation and as a people, you can see things and there's a lingering to it. But I think individually, if you're doing stuff and you're not going to be aware of your own smell necessarily. There are people when they walk in a room and you're like, oh my gosh, you reek, and they look at you like, what? I don't know. When you walked in, I lost an eyebrow. I mean, but I'm sorry. Did I say that out loud? And they look at you funny, right? And they get all offended. But we lose the sensitivity. Look, those of you out there that are smokers or are vapors, but especially the smokers, you walk in a room after you went outside smoking, you may not smell it on you because you were just smoking. We can smell it all over you. Okay, you walk in a room and it's like a cloud around you. And so, yes, if you do certain things, just realize that I like the metaphor in general, and there is a level to that lingering to remind you. But if you personally are doing it, just you individually, it probably, at least it could have a chance that you would lose awareness of it because you're so busy with it and used to it that you don't even smell it anymore. Okay? Okay, because your senses get dulled to that. because it's something you get so used to. All right, Janet.
Thank you, Rabbi. Rabbi, I was going through verse 13. At the beginning of the verse says, and Yahweh did according to the word of Moshe. And I was thinking about what you just taught us earlier about, how Moshe was Elohim to Pharaoh and Aaron was a prophet to him. And you were talking about the roles and how the father talks to the son just says what the father says. And it's so beautiful how you see the unison there when you said, that Yahweh did according to what Moshe said, because Moshe only spoke what Yahweh said. And that's what I think that to me, in my walk, I really need to be very congruent with what I profess, I believe. And that's what we see in the whole chapter. And over Moshe is pleading before Yahweh for the Mizrahites when Pharaoh is asking him, can you intercede for us, get him to stop the plague? And he does. And the Pharaoh doesn't. Pharaoh doesn't. He says, yeah, I'm going to let you go, and he doesn't. And that's just it just gets to my attention. Like I really need to follow it with integrity, what I say or profess that I believe in my walk, right? In my daily walk. That's all I have. Thank you.
All right, look, this is very consistent where he says in other places in Scripture that if you're in a right relationship, if you love me and guard my commandments, that kind of thing, he says, and you can ask in my authority and I will do it. Okay? So here's Moses asking something in the authority, because prior to the verse you quoted, in the 2 or 3 verses earlier, Pharaoh's asking Moses, right? And Moses says, tomorrow this is going to... So Moses spoke, and then Yahweh did, because Moses spoke properly in the authority. Okay? And so when he says, if you are doing things properly and you do ask these things in my authority that are in line with my authority, I will do them. Well, you see Yahweh doing the same thing right here. Okay? Excellent. All right, Steve?
All right, 8:15, how it talked about how Pharaoh said he would let people go if they would get rid of the frogs, but he didn't let people go. So it makes me think, how often do we make promises to get what we want and then don't follow through? So it says, where is your integrity is what I want to ask.
Okay, I'm gonna take that in a little bit stronger direction. How many times do you have adversity, talk up a big talk, if the adversity would then disappear, then the adversity's gone, and you then like, okay, I'm fine now, I'm just going to go back to whatever. Okay? Husbands and wives have a real hard time with this. They're fighting and dealing with some dumb whatever it is that we deal with, because it's almost always dumb. It's just being honest. Almost all fights are always dumb. It's very real. I'm not saying it's not real, but if you actually sat back and analyzed, you say, man, we fight over really dumb stuff. And the thing is, though, then after the fighting ends and there's a little bit of a calm, then we think, oh, everything's great, and forget what caused the fight in the first place is still there, which is being a dumb human being. Selfish about this. Whatever it was that caused the problem in the first place didn't necessarily go away. You just kind of got it to the calm, and then everything seemed good for a little while until it pops up again. And that's the kind of problem that I would add to what Steve said, which is, you can say, oh, I'm going to go get counseling, and we'll go see Rabbi, and we're going to do this, or I'm going to go make these changes in my life, and then all of a sudden things are better for a while, and then you don't do them. Or you only do them for a short while. And then you wonder why you're back where you started. Well, because you didn't do what needed to be done. Why? Because it seemed okay. So when Pharaoh's like, get rid of these frogs, all right, now the frogs are gone. Okay, now you can't go anywhere. Frogs are gone. I'm happy again. Instead of realizing there's a reason why we had the frogs. You need to let my people go. You don't let my people go, we're going to have another problem, and then another problem. Well, guess what? If you don't deal with the actual problem, then you're going to get these effects of the problem. So actually, the frogs are an effect of the problem. Right? The problem was Pharaoh wasn't letting the people go. The effect of that decision, frogs. He doesn't let the people go. Next one. Right? Every plague was a result of or an effect of a decision. But yet the problem was never addressed. Problem was, you need to let my people go. Okay. So what are you doing in all those situations in your life? You talk all about what you're going to do to fix it. Oh, or you realize, as many of us do, I need to lose some weight. And then you get good for like a day. And then you're right back to the old way. Or I'm going to go to the gym. And then 4 months later, you only went once. There has to be the follow-through. And you actually not only have to follow through, but you have to recognize there was a reason why the thing you were upset about and prayed for it to go away, it still needs to be addressed. Just because it went away a little bit doesn't mean it will never come back unless you actually address the problem. So I thank you, Steve, for bringing that up, because that's what you see happening when you talk about people applying this in their lives, is that are you actually addressing the issue, or because things calm down, do you act like there was no issue? Well, we don't know. We don't need to go see Rabbi now. We're fine. No, we're just in the quiet between storms. We're not going to call it the calm in the storm. It's the calm between storms. And then the storm happens again. And then you're mad at the other person. Well, because you never addressed it, of course. Or maybe you addressed it insufficiently or incompletely. Maybe you started addressing it and didn't follow through. This is a huge problem in the couples I counsel. One or both are unwilling to actually do anything to actually address the actual problem. I just need her to stop, blah, blah. I just need him to stop, blah, blah, blah. Well, if we can agree that either one of you needs to stop doing something, then what are you going to do to fix it? You've been doing it your whole life. It's not going to just stop because you decided, I'll just stop doing it. Not so easy. Not going to work that way. You need a plan and a process and counseling and even supportive people that will encourage you to get the thing fixed. It's not just going to fix because you said, well, I'll just stop doing that. Not going to work. I shouldn't say that. It might work for a very brief period of time. All of us can muster up a certain amount of discipline for a short period of time. Mustering up discipline for a long period of time, much, much more difficult. It's like over the time chart, if it was looking at a timeline, it would be like a difficulty level and out of time, and then all of a sudden it really starts to go exponentially. It's not like it just gets a little bit harder, a little bit harder. No, it just ramps up over time to where it becomes impossible to keep the discipline. But if you address the problem, then you have workarounds and other ways to handle the issue when it comes. You can keep it down nice and low without it just going, zoop. All right? So that's a good point. Anything else for chapter 8? Let's see what I got. No, we're good. Chapter 8. Okay, back there, Grayson.
From Ashley Condon, and you might have already touched on this regarding verse 28. But is there some chance Pharaoh believed in Yahweh, like kind of did a bit before this walk? If not, what does praise suggest in this verse?
No, you got to remember, they were all very religious people, whatever God they believed in. Okay? There weren't a whole lot of atheists running around. Everybody believed in something. Mostly. I'm not saying there weren't any, but I'm saying, but not compared to like today, we've got mostly a lot of people that are just secular humanists who just don't believe in any kind of supreme anything, whatever. But they all believed in some sort of, deity structure, whether it was multiple ones or, whatever, earth-related or like the pantheon of Rome or, or Greece or whatever. They all believed in something. And so the idea of praying was very common. You were in a challenge, you prayed. You prayed to the gods or God or whatever for intervention. So Pharaoh knew Yahweh was a God. He didn't understand that he was the God, but that he was a God, and asked Moses, since he's your God, Moses, pray to him. Because he brought this army, pray to him to take it away. So hopefully that answers that question. Anything else?
That is all for chapter 8.
All right, chapter 9. Anybody? All right, Justin? Well, out there, Grayson, you got anything for 9?
I have one for none.
All right, go ahead.
From Evangeline Agalasso, verse 14, plagues unto your heart. Can you please expound on this, Rabbi? Thank you.
Well, apparently that was Justin's question too, so there you go. He was walking up here to ask the exact same question. All right, so chapter 9, okay? It says, but Yahweh hardened the heart of Pharaoh, verse 12, and he did not listen to them as Yahweh had said to Moshe. And Yahweh said to Moshe, rise early in the morning and stand before Pharaoh and say to him, thus said Yahweh, Elohim of the Hebrews. See, this is the idea of, again, them understanding this is the Elohim of the Hebrews, and Pharaoh had his own bunches of Elohims. And he said, let my people go so that they serve me. For at this time I'm sending all my plagues onto your heart and on your servants and on your people, so that you know that there's none like me. So what is this whole thing with onto your heart and onto your servants and on your people? He wants Pharaoh to know, look, you think you have authority, you think your gods have authority. Well, I'm going to mess up, I'm going to just disturb your peace, weaken you as a person, like I talked about people, I said this over the last couple of months, having no heart. Okay, they're going to be weak, and their hearts are going to be disturbed, and they're going to panic, and they're going to cry, and they're going to wail, and I'm doing this to you and your people because you have brought this on yourself, okay, basically. So it's just using more picture language to make the same point that there would be, basically, he could have just said, I'm going to make you all suffer, you and all your people, the servants, everybody. So he talks about it from using the words like onto your heart and on your servants, etc. In other words, it's going to crush you emotionally. All right, anything else?
That's all at this time.
Okay. And Janet, chapter 9.
Ra, I just have a quick comment. So verse 4, right? And then verse 20 says, verse 4 says that Yahweh separated, the Israelites so that their livestock was not affected. And then verse 20, it says, those among the servants of Pharaoh who fear the word of Yahweh made their servants and livestock flee to the houses. And so when I read those two verses, I just thought about the compassion of Yahweh and his not honoring, but I guess giving the favor to the Israelites and even to the servants of Pharaoh when you believe what he said, because they believe. Everybody heard what was going on, and they decided to do that. He protected them because they did. Especially the servants of Pharaoh. So I just thought about that, how we, like me, in the walk, you always say that obedience is required for to get a blessing from Yahweh, that the blessing doesn't come just, like you were saying, it's not like an unmerited, it's merited. And how it really is about the heart and believing that he will do. If I do, he will honor me. There is no respect to it, right? He will do what he says. So anyway, I thought about that. It was just the compassion and what he says he does.
Amen. Amen. Look, you see an example here exactly of that, which is that he gave them information, and even the Egyptians, some of them started to believe what he said, and they did the necessary things, so they brought in their animals and their servants so that they didn't get whacked by the hail. All right? So this is where we're starting to see people who are starting to get what's going on, and they end up being, likely some of them, part of that mixed multitude that leaves, because they're starting to recognize the awesome power of Elohim. Okay? All right, Justin? Coming up with a different question that Miss Agaloso didn't already steal from you.
I'm trying to do the one question at a time and then come back around. So 27 right here, 9:27, where Pharaoh calls for Moshe and Aaron and says that he has sinned this time. Yahweh is righteous, and my people and I are wrong. And what that makes me think of is what you've taught us about own it, fix it, and move on. There, he's not owning that he's the one that's made these decisions not to let the people go, but he's also blaming all the rest of them, the Mitzrayims.
Right. Okay. Appreciate that observation. Of course, at this point, we're only, up to Hail, so we've got a couple more to go. So this moment of clarity doesn't last that long necessarily for Pharaoh, because he's just trying to do whatever he has to say to get it to stop. And he realizes at this point, asking Moses to pray and looking contrite seems to work up to a point. All right, Steve.
Okay, in 9:4, what's the significance where Abba started to separate Israel from Mitzrayim as far as what was happening to each?
Because all of this is that picture of separation, right? He tells them to be set apart as he's set apart. So the entirety of Scripture is a lesson in contrast between his people and the rest of the world, between fear and doubt and trust and belief. It's all about comparisons and the contrast of the comparison. So here he's now saying, this is my people, and see what happens when you're my people, and my hand is over you, and you don't end up with all your cattle dying, and you don't end up getting all of the things that are happening after starting in the fourth plague on. And this is the rest of you. Which camp do you want to be in? Of course, then when you come over to this camp and say, well, I want to be in this camp, he says, well, this is the agreement we have to have in order to be in this camp. Are you willing to sign on for the whole deal? You already see what you get if you're in this camp. You get protected and blessed and all those things, but I expect something too. Okay, so we have that covenant thing again. That's a teaching that you got to listen to at least a few times. I know it's, 55 parts or something, whatever it is. Listen to it. It's everything. Okay? All right. At least the idea of being in covenant is everything. Anything over there, chapter 9? Otherwise, I have two more things and we can close.
There's a question. Exodus 9:14, Deuteronomy 6:4, John 1:8. Who is speaking? Messiah?
Yeah, I answered this in the Father-Son teaching and other places. Messiah is doing almost all the interacting with human beings, okay, in whichever form, Old Testament or New. Okay, it's almost always going to be Messiah. The Father, well, I don't want to get into it here. Just listen to the Father and the Son teaching. But yes, I would agree with you. Okay. All right. Let's see. One is something from chapter 9, and I want to have one that I can go back to chapter 6:4. All right. So in chapter 9, verses, well, we could do this next week even. All right. Actually, you know what? I'll cover that next week because it actually has to do with chapter 10 as well, so we can simply go back and kind of connect those dots. So let me just go to chapter 6, and we'll cover one thing, and then we'll deal with the chapter 9 thing next time because I will also be doing this next week. All right. So at 6:5, it says, he heard the grumblings and he remembered his covenant. Okay, so I just want you to think about that in a different way. He heard them grumbling because they were suffering in Egypt. And he said, I heard your grumblings. I remember my covenant. I promised Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And he promised that it would be a 400-year period, and then they would come and he would intervene, etc. And by the way, he did not intervene because of the grumbling. They were grumbling for years. He intervened when he said he would intervene. So let's be careful that we don't think, well, look, they grumbled and he remembered his covenant and he saved them. No, they were grumbling for a while. They also thought that he hadn't heard their cries, and he said, well, he had heard their cries. He was just waiting till the moment he knew he needed to wait till. And he wanted it to be Moses, and the whole plan was what his plan was, and so it had to all play out. And so let's be careful with our grumbling and recognize that really, I'm going to reverse this a little bit. We grumble because we don't remember our covenant and we don't remember his covenant. He didn't promise you a rose garden, so to speak. In this life now. He said, look, listen to Messiah's words. He said, look, I suffered, you'll suffer. By your choices to do this. But ultimately, it will pay off. It'll be worth it. The end result will be worth all. And so, why do we grumble then? We grumble because we don't see it. See, Yahweh said the whole time, I'm watching and I have my covenant right there, and I'm going to do it exactly like I said. You guys forgot your covenant, and that's why you're sitting here. You don't know me. You've lost contact with me. Jacob had taught you. Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, they all taught you. So now we got this big mess we're going to have to bring to Sinai and have a formal covenant. There still was a relationship that should have been there prior to the formal covenant. Adam had it, Noah had it, right? Abram had it, Isaac, Jacob. They all had a relationship, we would have called it covenant. We even have churches out there, and other people refer to the Adamic covenant, the Noahic covenant, the Davidic covenant, right? Everybody, the Abrahamic covenant. There's covenants. They're all part of the same thing. It's the relationship with Yahweh. He talks, you do, it's great. It's the same covenant all the time. And so just be careful with our grumbling. If you remember your covenant, you would never grumble. That doesn't mean you never have an issue with a person, but you would never grumble about, look to Yahweh, why is my life so bad, blah, 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 blah. He said, because you live in a world that's not mine at this point, right? And you've lost your peace. That's why you need to listen to the teaching, peace in a world not his. And it's not his right now, and he's allowing it not to be. So don't grumble about it. Accept that reality. Also know that this is a limited time situation. It's not always going to be a world not his. It will ultimately be all his, as it always was and always will be. But he's allowing it to function the way it does in somewhat disconnect from him because he's allowing it for whatever his reasons are. And we've taught those things in the past, and you know those things. Mostly so that man can realize that his way leads to death, that his way is not even to know where to put his own feet. If you want to take, I love these guys out there that attack teachers and everything. It says it's not in man to know how to place his feet. So now you got the Ruach, and the Ruach teaches you how to put your feet. How's that been working? Without a teacher, without structure, just having the Ruach, now you know where to put your feet. I don't know if that's been working really well for most people. Because the Ruach is not doing that function that way. If that were the case, why does anybody go on YouTube looking for teachings? Because they're entertaining? Or because you have questions? But yet everybody wants to say, oh no, we don't need teachers now, we have the Ruach. Fine, then never ask another question. Only pray to the Ruach, if that's what you think it does. I think that's a fair response. If you don't need teachers, then stop asking questions of teachers. Stop looking for teachers. Stop criticizing teachers. Just listen to the Ruach. If you can even tell which Ruach you're listening to. Because there's more than one. Okay, there's there's three. There's the spirit in man, your own voice, self-sovereignty, your wants, your desires, your preferences. Spirit of Hasatan, and then the spirit of Elohim. They all project themselves as the same. Each one is claiming to be Yahweh. When you talk to yourself, you try to convince yourself you're Yahweh. When Hasatan talks, he tries to convince you he's Yahweh. Not like you're trying to convince yourself, I am Yahweh. You're trying to convince yourself that that voice is his voice when it's your voice. Because it supports you doing what you want. And Hasatan's really just encouraging you to do what you want. So his voice sings in harmony. So you got a two-part harmony between you and him. Saying basically the same thing. Yeah, go for it. You want to do what you want to do. Don't let anybody push you around. And then Hasatan and you are doing this two-part harmony. Yahweh's just sitting back waiting for you guys to shut up so he can talk to you. But yet, this is where we're at. Oh, but the Ruach just teaches me everything. Well, good. Let's take your understanding of all the things that I've retaught as far as definitions of terms and see if the Ruach has given you all that. Because you don't need a teacher. And I don't know why we always have questions after every Torah portion reading. Everybody, I believe, who asked a question has the Ruach. So why would they have a question? Because it doesn't work that way. At some point, you have to just look at the facts and understand. It's like this world with this jab thing. Forget about whether you think it's right or wrong to do. It should be obvious at this point, after a year and a half, that it just doesn't work. I mean, not for any other point other than just looking at the evidence. You couldn't say that the first week it came out. You could just say that I don't like the idea, I don't want it, whatever, okay? But at this point, it doesn't take a brilliant mind with analytical degree to see the statistical evidence that it doesn't work. Well, it's the same thing in your life. At what point are you going to realize you need to be part of a structure with a teacher, with a counselor, with a covering, and that's the way he designed it to work? I mean, you've been doing it the other way all this time. If it's been working so great, why do you still have issues, and questions, struggles, and everything else if it's been working so great? Because you know that's nonsense. It hasn't been working so great. I got to be careful. I may say some of those words that aren't bad because I get so frustrated. Because it's so dumb. I'm not saying you're dumb. I'm saying that it's dumb when we do these things. I don't know how you can get to the point anywhere in the scripture where anybody, except for the prophets themselves, did anything without somebody guiding them and instructing them and teaching them. And even they were taught directly. And they literally heard the voice instruct them. And there's only, how many prophets can you name in this book cover to cover over the last 4,000 years that it covers? There's not a very many of them. In the billions of people that lived during this time, there's only a very few people he spoke to and did that with. Oh, it's different now. Yeshua died and gave everybody the Spirit. Blah. Really? It's different now. Yeah, I think they actually understood things better then than now. That's the difference now. I think it's gotten worse, not better. And not because what Yeshua did made it worse, it's because we just interpret it in a way that makes it worse. What Yeshua did made it better. But we don't understand that. Our Messiah, what did he do in his walk in his life? He gathered together men that he taught how to teach. Why would you waste your time with that if you know you're going to die and send everybody the Ruach? That seems kind of dumb. He trained, and then the last thing he told them to do was go out there and find others that want to be trained, that have anointings and gifts that you can teach them so they can do what you're doing, so that there will be teachers going generationally down through time. Yeshua was obviously confused, because after all, we just all were going to have the Ruach, so why would you waste his time with all that? Think about how dumb we are when we go down that route. No, but why do we go down that route? Because we don't want to be under any authority. We don't want anybody to be the teacher, because then we have to do what somebody else says. And somebody might tell us, you're wrong. And we don't want to hear that we're wrong. I don't know how you get anything else out of this book. Through and through. There is a structure. Paul talks about the different roles in the structure. In Ephesians 4, the fivefold ministry, that's part of the structure. It's not the end-all, be-all, but it's certainly a part of it. And we sit here with our brilliant audacity, self-sovereign genius saying, I don't need anybody. And almost all the marriages they counsel have husbands that are in that exact place where they won't talk to me or anybody. I don't need anybody. I'm the head, and you better listen to me, and you better submit, wife. But who are you submitting to? It's a mess. It's a terrible mess. And yet, it's because we buy into a false understanding. The false narrative causes all the suffering. You know why? I'll tell you why. Because it's evil. Like I've been teaching you. What does evil do? Causes suffering, pain, destruction, ruin, harm. False understandings are evil. Just go back and listen to the first two parts I did on the evil teaching. That's why you suffer. Because you bought into a lie. You've convinced yourself of a lie. And it's causing you suffering and ruin. I don't know how else to explain that. Because no matter what I say, everybody just thinks, you just want everybody to listen to you. I don't, actually. I don't even want this job. I wish it worked the other way. The Ruach just teach you everything, and then I don't even know what I would do. Okay? But, because doing it this way is brutally hard. I mean, I can't tell you how many times a day either I or Elder Billy look at each other, and either he just spoke to somebody or I spoke to somebody, and the words that come out of our mouth is, they don't listen. Nobody's listening. He just shook his head. He's like, no. And we want to pull our hair out. Well, he already did. But we want to so So he's even more frustrated. He goes to pull his hair out, it's already gone. That's why he's growing the beard. He has something to pull on. But it's hard for us because we're swimming upstream against you guys just wanting not to trust that this is his design. It's not my design. If it was my design, I'd try to tell everybody just cultishly, I'm the anointed, appointed, everybody just listen to me. I tell you, if I'm not it, go find one. He says you need to have that. So if I'm not it, then fine, don't listen to me, go find somebody else. But don't just sit there thinking you got it all worked out by yourself. Because you know that's a lie. That's why you watch. I watch somebody attack me relentlessly, and then in one of their videos talk about all the 5,000 teachings they've been watching from all these different teachers. Well, why are you watching all that? You just made a case about not needing a teacher. But yeah, that's all you do is listen to teachers. And teach. Nobody needs a teacher, but listen to me. That's my favorite hypocrisy. Nobody needs a teacher, but listen to me. We have to grow up and accept things as they are. Reality, okay? And the reality of what your life is compared to this book, when you do everything yourself without any help, is that it just doesn't work beyond a certain point. I'm not saying it doesn't work. Some of you can get up to a certain point pretty okay on your own. But without that help that the structure is supposed to be there for, you can't get beyond that. And all of you that are stubbornly refuse to get counsel are only hurting yourselves. I can tell you right now, I'm almost ready to shut down the counseling. Not because it's not valuable, because I can't get anything else done. But I wouldn't because it's so important. Billy can tell you, he can't get anything done either because he's now got all the overflow. And so we work all the hours we work because it's the only way to get anything done. I mean, I'm counseling and he's counseling, we're combined, 8-10 hours a day. Each of us, at least 4 or 5 hours of our day is counseling. And that's without the people that really need to on top of that. Not to saying the people we counsel don't need it, but the other ones that are refusing to, we'd be counseling 10, 15 hours a day. And then Abba would send us more people that can counsel. And so it doesn't help me any of you guys all start counseling from the point of view of making my day any easier. But it might help your life a little bit. I'm just pleading with you to do what you need to do and let us help you if we can. For your sake, not mine. I don't get anything out of it. We don't charge for counseling or anything. I get no benefit. I get agita and frustration. I don't get any benefit. It is so frustrating. Like any parent with a child where you taught them what they need to do and you told them what to do and they just do it the wrong way anyway and hurt themselves anyway because they just don't want to listen. It's incredibly brutal to watch that all day long. And the people come to you when it blew up in their face and I say, well, did you do what and no. Billy says it all the time. Did you do it? And they say no. He says, well, look, you know what he says? He says something even more strong than me. He says, well, then come back when you've done it. Right? He'll say, you didn't do what I told you? Well, then why are you even talking to me? Go back and do what I told you to do and then come back. I'm going to start using that. It's appropriate. I mean, I don't know what else to say. I don't know. It wasn't part of the Torah portion. I'm just trying to let you guys know we love you so much. Let us help you. What that means is come and get counsel, pray about it. I'm not saying just believe and do everything, but come and at least try and see how it works. Because some of you we see all the time because you actually figured that out. So we're not complaining when we see you on a regular basis. We appreciate that you actually get it. Now, sometimes you don't do what we told you and it's frustrating, but at least you're coming and trying. Okay? And then we have people that can tell you with their testimony, it works. It makes a difference. Okay? And the rest of you are thinking, yeah, but then I have to admit I have a problem. Well, get over it. Especially you men. Get over it. Until you can realize that you're not all that, you can't get anywhere. You have to get to that place first where you realize you're not all that. That doesn't mean you're nothing, but you haven't arrived, okay? The best at anything in the world, they have coaches. The richest, highest paid athletes, artists, singers, musicians, all have coaches. And you think you, trying to run your life, even though you're not one of these high-end people, that you don't need help. The highest-end people get help and don't think they've arrived. They're always working on their craft. And if your craft is to be a husband and a father or a wife and a mother or whatever your role is, you need to be working on that. And you probably need a coach. Someone to encourage you and to help you do it the best way you can. And, you know, the one who can look at you like a coach does and say, you know what, to the quarterback, when you're going back, you're dropping your arm, you're not bringing it up where it needs to be. Because they're seeing and they're observing and they have that talent and skill to identify a problem and have you fix it. The next thing you know, you go back and you realize, oh no, I got to lift it up a little higher. And then all of a sudden everything works better. Same thing could be in your relationship. Well, you know, if you talk to your wife a little nicer, if you talk to your husband a little different way, if you show a little bit more respect, if you do a little bit more caring, I can teach you all these things by looking at what you're doing and saying, that's probably where some of the problem is. Let's fix that. You know? That's all I have to say. And I took us right to 9:30. There you go. There we go. Anyway, so that's Torah portion, Vayira. All right, let's get someone to close us in prayer. All right. Well, Billy raised his hand earlier to pray when I prayed. Let's bring it back to him. Elder Billy Jackson. Come up closer so they can get you on the camera. Like to where the standing places for like the, he'll get you. Well, wait until they, okay, now.
All right, would you guys all stand? Awesome. Dear Abba, we just give you praise and glory for all that you are and all that you do in our lives. We thank you for our amazing rabbi who keeps us all going as our number one coach in this walk. We thank you for his example of graciousness, his attitude, his directness to help us to get from where we are to where you are. So we bless you and we honor you. We thank you for this time that we got to assemble tonight in the name of Yeshua, our Messiah. Amen.
Amen. Amen. If anybody wants to come up here to wave goodbye to everybody out there, you can come on up. All right, as soon as we get everybody up here, we're going to communicate how much we appreciate that all of you out there are part of the group and part of the congregation, that you're all part of the body seeking to transform and conform into the image of Yeshua and to be in that kingdom. All right. Okay, so Marty, we ready? All right. So on 3, we're going to wish everybody a Lila Tov, which is a good night. Shavua Tov is a good week. And we're going to tell them that we love them. Here we go. 1, 2, 3.